Hey everybody, I'm Nick Von Walkerbarth and you're listening to the Von Dubcast. I like to do a little bit of intro where I talk about what's happening in my life, a little bit of background on the guest, what I felt going into the interview, what I thought of the interview, and just whatever else is going on. If you'd like to jump right to the interview, you can skip to 13 minutes. If not, we have one sponsor and we'll get right into it. Today's episode is brought to you by Fisky in Grand Prairie. Fisky is it's kind of like a mixture between fast food and health food. It's quick, it's easy, and you get delicious, healthy food. It's a pillar in my journey to try and be healthy. It's usually sometimes the only thing I do that's healthy in a day, but it's always there for me and I really enjoy it. If you're ever in GP, please stop by and check them out. And if you do, please tell them you heard about them here on the Von Dubcast. All right, hello everybody. It's episode 111. That is crazy to think that it's already at 111 episodes. It feels like I just started this podcast a couple months back and somehow at the same time, like it's been 10 years already. But yeah, I'm still loving it, just in case you guys are wondering. I have a great guest for you guys today. In fact, it was I was going to say my high school math teacher, but I think he taught way more than high school to me. He was kind of my math teacher from, I guess maybe this is a small town thing, but probably from like grade 7 onwards right till grade 12. He probably taught me every year, and maybe there's one or 2 years that were off, but he was always one of my favorite teachers. He really, as we discussed in this episode, and you'll hear, but he treated certain kids. I think he treated everyone differently. I think that's the role of a teacher, is kind of to, be whatever that individual student needs you to be for them. But for me, that was someone that would treat like an adult, and I think I really struggled with school because I really felt like they're treating me like a child. Obviously, I was a child. They probably needed to, but there was a lot of times where I felt like I just really didn't appreciate that. And I would feel a lot of frustration because of that. And I think it would prevent me from learning a lot of the time because I didn't want to listen to this fucking idiot in front of me because I didn't, respect him in that. And I never had that with Mr. Fisk. And, me and Mr. Fisk had our, every once in a while we'd go at each other and we'd probably blow up in ways that wasn't appropriate for either a student or a teacher. But that's how our, if you want to call it sounds weird to call it a relationship, but like just how that grew to where it was. And then, you just, when you're a kid, you don't really, I think I appreciated what I got from Cam back in that time, but it's just a different way once you become a bit more of an adult yourself and you see the world through the eyes of someone that isn't in that little high school, middle school bubble. You have a little bit more appreciation for it, and looking back on what separated out the teachers I liked and didn't like, and what things I learned where you can apply them. It was something that I really appreciated. And when I wanted to start this podcast, Mr. Fisk was actually one of the first people that I called to see if he'd come on. And kind of a funny reason at that time, but I was just obsessed with Eric Weinstein. Maybe I probably talk about it a ton the first couple episodes because it was right when it was being released. But his geometric unity is kind of his theory for everything. He's a mathematician that is kind of highlighting the errors of where we've gone with physics through the lens of math. Just actually, it's funny the timing on this, but another great episode of the Lex Friedman podcast had another guy on that's kind of taking on the same fight of just highlighting the issues of how predominantly we've gone down the path of string theory and how it hasn't panned out and there's been no new developments. It's given us amazing things in technology. But really, it's kind of leading us astray, and we need people to wake up. But it's so entrenched into the system now that you can't get people to start to acknowledge that. And I was really high on this new theory that Eric Weinstein was putting out, and I was trying to think, well, it's too much for me to learn. I bought this book on math, this big behemoth. It's like, I don't know, 1,500 pages of just like all the way back to Plato and like the Platonic solids and where math came from. And it was fascinating to me, but just heavy stuff. And I was trying to read this and I thought maybe I could, bounce this around with Mr. Fisk. So I called, rang him up. I don't know if maybe I found him on LinkedIn back then or Facebook, who knows. And I kind of rolled it out to him. He goes, "Nick, you realize I'm a high school math teacher, you fucking idiot, right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, this is stupid." But I'd still love to talk to him. And in that conversation, we kind of caught up. And I think Mr. Fisk had listened to the first couple episodes. No, because I talked to him before I'd even released episodes, I think. Anyway, we talked a couple times and we just had really fun conversations. It was the first time we'd ever talked that wasn't back in the day with that student teacher relationship, just kind of talk as peers. And it was a fascinating conversation. And we talked about, well, we don't need to go into those deep math rabbit holes. We can just talk as two guys, see what comes out of it. And it just kind of, I don't know, just waiting for the right time to happen. And then I finally was able to find a time, book in, and we sat down and just had an awesome conversation. We just bullshitted about his new job doing realty, talked about old teaching, what he got out of that, his roles before getting into teaching, managing hotels, and just kind of the life lessons that he's taken in, and just kind of, just bullshitting and seeing where it went. And I just thought all the topics that we covered, it was really fascinating to me. And I always tell you guys, it's hard to remember exactly what I talk about. The second the mics turn off, you just remember how you feel. And what usually demarcates it is if I look down and the clock's already gone, it's 2.5 hours past like that, and I'm like, holy shit, that like trying to wrap it up. That's when I know it's a pretty good episode, because I'm just so locked in and so much in that flow state. And this is definitely one of those. So I think you guys are probably going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it. I hope you do. I've been having a decent week. I think I talked to you guys in a couple of these intros, just kind of what I'm struggling with lately with, trying to take this podcast on full time and all the other personal things I'm going through right now. And just the weird dynamic that it is to go from such a place of depression to such a huge monumental leap forward, and just enjoying that, and to try and understand and recalibrate how I'm feeling, and just, trying to get in touch with yourself, because I'm not feeling great, if I'm honest with you guys. Like I'm beating myself up for not working, but I also just have I really struggle with motivation and feeling a lot of those old depressive feelings that I was fighting with. But now when I'm feeling those, I can just do whatever I need for my mental health. It's not like I just have to, it doesn't matter. I have to be for work. I have to put a strong face on for work the next day and just struggle through and just be a nightmare. That is so apparent when you're in that place. The depression really highlights. But now I feel like I'm still depressed, but I can do whatever I need to do to take care of it. So I'm in this kind of weird limbo spot where it's like, I have nothing to be sad about. I'm really taking care of myself. I'm doing whatever I want. I'm giving myself all the grace that I need, other than beating myself up for not doing the podcast stuff and that, and not really jumping at it like I need to. But I don't have, it's hard, that depressive, fight to get out of the bed is still there a bit, right? And there's not as many reasons for it, or the reasons that are there that I can see, and I'm sure there's more to it. And I know there's certain things, personal things like I've talked about, but it's just a new dynamic, and I'm looking, I'm working through it. And it's just, I like being honest with you guys, as much as I talk about it, as that's what makes podcasts strong. I think also you just get a lot out of it. I get a lot out of it. It's very cathartic to get on here and to talk to you guys about what I'm going through, and I just enjoy it. So that's just a little update. Other than that, had a great week here in Edmonton. Was able to go to an Oilers game on Wednesday. Got my rapid test that took like an hour and a half at the drugstore. It's kind of bullshit for a rapid test, even though I have fucking 50 rapid tests at home and they don't count because they need their $40 or whatever, a piece of paper. Bullshit. Anyways, not going to get upset over that. Was awesome. Saw a big Oilers win with my guy Chase. Went to down by Calgary, what was it, Linden, Alberta? Anyway, somewhere down in Alberta, and picked up Chase's brand new golden retriever puppy. Holy Christ, guys. It is the cutest little dog, second cutest little dog I've ever seen. Obviously, my little Soka is way cuter, but it's pretty close second. And we just, drove down there. We always have a good time, pumping tunes, really excited, probably driving too fast. Almost got pulled over about 3 minutes away from the doghouse. Had a peace officer flash his lights at us and, held the breath a little bit, didn't pull us over, got in there, got the dog. And then in my big back seat, Chase and the dog got to just bond the whole way home, playing around, jumping on his face, and then stopped in Red Deer, had a good play with him outside. And then he slept pretty much in Chase's lap the whole way home from Red Deer, and it was just so cute and so much fun. And then got home and brought Soka over to meet them. They were cute, just playing, and had some good times with him. And then was able to go see an amazing comedy show on Friday night. Adam Hunter, who is a comedian that actually, you guys are getting a little bit of a hot tip here. He's actually going to be on the podcast in about, what time is it? I don't know, 3.5 hours, 4.5 hours. I'm supposed to go down to Rick Bronson's Comedy Club where I saw him and record an episode with him before he does his shows tonight on Sunday. And I am fucking nervous. Oh man. It's kind of a double whammy for me. I love MMA and I love combat sports and I love stand-up comedy. Those are two of my biggest passions. And Adam Hunter is a comedian that is also a wrestling coach and loves the UFC and loves MMA and does all the roasts for the UFC. His comedy specials on UFC Fight Pass. Like he is a maybe not like a white whale per se. He's not a Joe Rogan, but it's definitely a big step up for me, and it definitely means a lot to do that interview. And I'm very excited for it. I'm very nervous. Just letting you guys know, by the time this comes out tomorrow, you guys won't know it, but this interview will already be in the books. Good, bad, or ugly, we'll find out. I think it's going to be pretty fun though. Yeah, what else? Oh, but the comedy show. Oh my God, guys, it was so fucking funny. I'm sure I'll talk about it on that podcast and in the intro before I release the one I do with him today. But it was just incredible to watch. The host and then the feature spots and stuff and how they're navigating, because it was kind of a funky room. It was really split. The easy laughs, the people that were there, maybe that knew who Adam was, came for that type of comedy, were all on one side of the show, and the people that just rolled in to, see a few laughs and didn't know what they're walking into were kind of all on one. So it was a weird dynamic, and you could see, the host, who is, traditionally newer in comedy, didn't really address it, kind of just ignored it and stuff. And then as the more experienced comics came on, they started to call it out and play with that energy, and it was so fun. And then to watch Adam come out, who's been doing it the longest of everyone there, and just masterfully playing the crowd, not changing his material, just running it through, addressing awkwardness in the crowd when he needs to, playing with it, pulling them out of their shell, bullying the tails that are talking too much and stuff, and kind of annoying people the whole show, just really putting them in their place and kind of making them the butt of the joke when they didn't figure their shit out. And it was just awesome for me to watch. Not only was it great comedy that had me laughing my guts out the whole time, but just the mastery of the craft was so much fun for me to watch. Being a huge comedy nerd like I am, I just had such a great time. And so that was a great week doing the podcast tonight here, and then probably head her back to GP tomorrow. Got a bunch of cleaning to do around the house, bunch of stuff to do, and then hopefully get some photos taken and maybe see if I can get my house listed on the market and start looking at the next steps to moving down to Edmonton, so I don't have to drive 4 hours to see an Oilers game or see any of my friends and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a huge step forward in what I can do, getting some sort of weekly podcast as well as these interviews I'm doing. That'll be a lot easier not having to travel all around, so I can have my setup for streaming. I know I've come up with a million excuses for that, but I'm just really excited for that next step, and that's kind of what's on the agenda coming up. I know I already mentioned Fisky as the sponsor at the very start of this, but once again, if you're in Grand Prairie, stop by Fisky. They're amazing, great food, great people. They treat you nice, and I just can't speak any higher of them. And if you guys could do those nice little things, pass this episode on to a friend, follow social medias for the Von Dubcast, Twitter, Instagram. That really goes a long way, and I really appreciate it. If you want to subscribe on whatever podcast app you listen to, set it to download automatic. That really helps. All those little things. It doesn't go unappreciated by me. That's what makes the wheels turn on a podcast. That's what brings success, is those things. So if you're willing to do them, I'd really appreciate it, but no pressure. If not, I know I'm lazy. Usually it takes me a long time with a podcast before I dive into doing those things for it. But if you listen to a few episodes and you do enjoy it, I'd really appreciate it. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Cam Fisk, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Rocking and rolling. Beautiful. All right. Well, thanks for being here, Cam.
I guess I'm supposed to say hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, just to let people know, they'll probably hear in the intro a little bit of kind of how we know each other, but you were one of my favorite teachers growing up, and, over the years haven't chatted much, but then when I started this podcast up, I reached out to you and we were bullshitting on the phone. It was just fun to have a good bullshit, when you have that little teacher-student relationship, it kind of bounds what you can talk about a little bit. And I think, having said that, I think we probably pushed those boundaries a little bit even back then of what we were allowed to maybe right? Which was great. I loved it.
Yeah,
with a few of you, just a select few, which I really enjoyed too. Is it felt like giving more rope for what you can handle and to have that specified for who can handle it and who can't. I really enjoyed that. That was something that made me want to go to your class, right? And some of those other ones is just you have to go to the lowest common denominator of what you can give away from. And then when you're in a classroom, there's going to be some
it's the knowing when to quit.
Yes.
So many kids don't know when to quit.
Right.
So you can't get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I was actually thinking about that earlier in preparation for this. And one of the things I wanted to highlight was what I loved the most was I love when something can be said that's inappropriate, but if it's funny enough, it can bypass that, right? And I love that in your classroom that there was always room for, if you're going to push the line, if it's funny enough that you laugh, right, you can kind of get away with it. And I feel like there was so many times and not only that, like that's a big piece of it too, but having that gives you the space that when you do push too far, I recognize it, because if it wasn't too far, I know you would laugh at it and it wouldn't be. And I'd feel bad when I would go too far in your classroom, I'd actually feel guilty about it. Within all the other classrooms, because you don't have that where it's always too far. Anything that isn't within this box is boundary. Sometimes you're just like, you're giving me shit, but really, I think you thought that was funny and you're just playing this box. But when you know that you have a little bit of parameters, when you do go too far, it actually hits you and you feel, oh shit, I did go too far there, and you recognize it, right? I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, I've had a few where I've gone too far, but it is what it is, right? But it's the same thing. Like you were talking about it. We talked about it a little bit the other day when we were chatting, and I said, for me, I was not a great kid. Like I was not a fantastic student. And I think the big difference for me is I made a conscious choice that if I'm going to give it, I got to take it.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of adults, we won't necessarily limit that to teachers, that love to dish it out. Yeah. But really hate it when you get someone such as yourself who has a pretty quick wit and pretty quick brain and comes back and gives you a burn back. It's like, well, I guess I started this shit. I got to take it. Yeah. Maybe we'll stop it now, but right.
Exactly.
And that's the big thing, right?
But that was such a better set of parameters for myself. I mean, everyone's different, but for myself, for what I needed to learn and to grow, that was really crucial to what I needed in there. And I felt so constrained without having a little bit of that. So, and I don't think I recognized that until you get into a class where you do have it, right? Because you just think this is school, this is how it's regimented. And what I was thinking about with that is, I wonder what is more applicable to the real world. Because on one hand, there's going to be jobs and stuff where you better be in this box. You don't want to push too far. But what I found
that's knowing who your superiors are, though.
Right, exactly. But what I found, even in business, right? Like even in some of those meetings with Suncor, I think like more so like it was more applicable to your classrooms than the other ones, because I've said some pretty wild stuff in some of those meetings, but it's funny enough that everyone comes along with it and it comes and it makes your point, right? Or maybe swearing at a certain point for a certain point of emphasis in a point where swearing is probably not allowed, but it's okay. But it's okay in that situation. I feel like that is where I learned those skills all the way back, or started honing those skills. I'm sure they were honed over time, but I learned that starting back, whereas some kids probably don't start that until they're 18 and go out in the real world, or 22 when they graduate university. And then they're starting to take that in. Whereas I had an opportunity to kind of start pushing those boundaries and finding when you can and when you can't, and where those layers are a lot earlier. And I feel like I was way ahead of kids, right? Like we talked about again off the podcast, a bit of recognizing these kids in university that had never worked in the real world, had never seen it, and they're very intelligent, but very inept in like emotional intelligence and
social common
sense and reading people. And it was just mind blowing to see, because I was so used to it. And I don't know if that's a small town versus city thing or what it is, or maybe just a class thing. I don't know what it was, but it was weird. It was really weird to see.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think. That's a long time ago since I went to university. You know,
they've changed so much every year. Yeah.
Well, and you don't really think about it, but I mean, and the difference is too, I think, as opposed to a lot of your teachers, I grew up in it. I worked, right? Like, same thing. Like, and I'm not saying all teachers, because a lot of teachers do, right? And you know that and whatever, but it's like you said, I mean, I worked in a bar for 5 years.
Right.
So managed hotels in oil towns.
Like, I have questions about managing hotels on here. Don't you worry. We're going to address that.
Been there, done that, right? Like I said school was great. I got to go to school, and even when kids got mad at me, I never got spit on in a classroom. Yeah, there you can hold that high esteem. Happened more than once in the hotel. You know.
Wow. But, how many years do you think you had in the work world before you started like your first teaching job?
Sorry?
How many years of like managing hotels and running bars and stuff did you have under your belt before you started teaching?
So I was on the 10-year program, right? So I did a year out of high school, took a year off, did whatever, realized that, you know, I wasn't lucky enough to live in an area and know people, and my parents didn't really have the great connection. So it was like, I'm not working for minimum wage for the rest of my life. This is stupid.
Yeah.
And so I went back to school, did 3.5, almost 4 years of my ed degree.
Yeah.
And got offered a job, had a bad experience. Screw it. And I went to work, and I had been bartending my last 2 years of university for this guy. And I went to Saskatchewan for 2 years and managed a hotel in small town Saskatchewan, oil country too, right? Just across the border from Wainwright and, or Lloyd, like we're 45 minutes out of Lloyd. Yeah. And then, took about a 2 months, 3 months off, and, got my first unemployment check and went, oh my God, how do people live on this? Yeah. And so actually went back to work for the same guy and ended up in high level for just over 2 years.
Just over 2 years in high level. High level is for people that don't know, high level is a very northern Alberta community, very unique community comparatively to probably what you've seen. Yeah. It, for us, with Max Fuels, we had our territory shift over the years, right? We would expand into different areas, lose some areas, gain some more. And that was one of the weirdest ones we got, because at the time when high level became part of our territory, we were pretty used to taking on new territories and learning the community and stuff. And that one was so different. That Lacrete high level area was.
Well, Lacrete's a whole different.
Lacrete is, right?
And Lacrete's a whole different element, right?
For totally sure, too, right? For sure. But they're so connected, the two towns, right? It's almost one, you can't learn one without the other. And that was such a long, well, you can, but
you could move to high level and live in high level.
Yeah.
Good luck moving to Lacrete unless you marry into the church.
Right. Well, even when you go to, for people that don't understand, when you go to Lacrete, even you go to a restaurant and you're sitting there, you will get stared down by everyone in there, because it's such a tight community. They know you're an outsider. Like, what are you doing here? Are you okay? And what was so fun about that was it was tough. The first year was tough, like trying to break into that community, try and get people to trust you that, you know, we do business right and we treat people right. And if you come with us, we're going to treat you right. It took a long time and finding little things like there's a golf tournament up there with all the loggers is very important, and going up there. And once you break through that initial barrier of whatever that is, they're such amazing people, and they're
fantastic. It's a fantastic community, but like you said, but there's so much involvement with the Mennonite church. Yeah. And it's like, you got to be really careful.
The Mennonite mafia.
And you got to understand that what they do in public is not necessarily how they behave at home.
Not at all.
And that kind of stuff too. And you have to be careful what you say and who you say it to. And, you know, if you're talking to a guy one day, you can be bullshitting with him, and then the next day he's in there with his dad. You got to be really careful what you say.
100%.
Right? Like,
I've made that mistake for sure. You know, I remember at that one golf tournament line, and he kind of gives you that look of, you know, shut the fuck up. sorry. Yeah.
But it's part of learning, right? Like up there, it is definitely a community. Yeah.
So what years were you up in high level for those 2 years, you think?
So I was in Saskatchewan from 99 to 2001. Right. And I left there February 2001. And then I went to high level in May of 99. Sorry. I was in Unity from 97 to 99. Right. And then high level from 99 to 2001. Then I came back and did some other things while I took my last 3 university courses to get my degree, and
finish up.
Subbed for about a year and a half, and ended up in Slave Lake for 13 years.
13 years, hey? Yeah. Wow, that was a long time. I didn't realize it was that long that you were in Slave. Yeah. But just backing it up to the running a hotel, I'm curious. So like, you're a younger guy jumping into that role, probably the first
23.
23, right? Like, and that's how old I was when I hopped in GP and was going into that role, and way out of my element for the first couple months, right before while you get your feet under you and stuff. And I'm curious what that experience was like, because, you know, running a hotel and having staff of that age is a different ball game. How was that for you? Was that a big adjustment, or
it was some of the past but I'm like one of those guys. I mean, it's part of a lifestyle, right? And for me, it was probably not the best choice, but it was fun. Yeah, you know, definitely had some issues with some of the staff because of the age. Yeah. You know, when you've got a waitress that's 25 years older than you, sometimes it's hard to get them to understand what you're talking about. Yeah. But I think that's the same as anything else. You build that. Yeah. You take some time and you build that relationship, and you show them. And in service industry, which I guess kind of applies to you, but it's like, you know, when you walk into the restaurant and the restaurant's packed, boss tables. Yeah. Like, so I'm your boss, but I'm here to help, and we're here to succeed as a team. Yeah. And I think that makes a huge difference to some of those people when they see that yeah, but you're here. Like, I mean, I've washed dishes.
Yeah.
I started as a bartender in Alberta Beach when I was going to university, but I mean, lots of days I'd wash dishes or bus tables or wait tables or
Right.
Didn't clean rooms very often, thank God. And never learned to cook because I figured if I learned to cook,
You're going to get stuck there?
I'd have to
Yeah,
cook.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was like, but like I said, and then when I went to high level, I actually started in a liquor store. So I managed the liquor store there for
Right.
about 6 months before some stuff changed, and then ended up as the assistant manager in that hotel.
Okay.
But it was quite a large hotel at the
Yeah.
time. Like, we had 75 rooms and our liquor store was probably at one point in time we're the busiest liquor store I know north of Grand Prairie.
Yeah.
Right.
I can imagine. And I think probably adding to that too is some of those communities around Lacrete, the rules only, and I can't imagine back, 20 years ago, what it'd be like. Cause I can see what it's like now. I imagine there's probably a lot of travel to the liquor store from surrounding areas too. That would probably,
I think the best story I ever remember from high level. Sorry, I got to tell you a story.
Yeah.
Was I was working I don't know if I was working in the liquor store or if I was managing the liquor store, if I was working there one day covering a shift for somebody that didn't show up or whatever it was. And some guys came in, and again, I was like 24, 25. So you're a little bit older than the young guys, but you can still have a conversation with a few of them. And they come in and got some beer, and they're talking about, we're going to head out to Lacrete. And I'm like, what? Why are you like, they go, no, we go out to Lacrete on Friday nights and we take the case of beer in the back of the truck and we just troll for girls down Main Street. And they'd come running because they can't get beer. And like, I'm sure there was a bit of an exaggeration to it, but he wasn't kidding, right?
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't far off. I'm sure. I'm sure.
And it was like, wow, okay, yeah.
Have fun. Be responsible. Don't crash. Yeah.
Do what you got to do,
Yeah.
right?
Oh man, I bet you probably saw some crazy shit in those hotels for those years too. Hey.
Some different stuff, Yeah.
Did you? Yeah. Oh, here's a question. I remember always hockey trips growing up, and us taking over some of those hotels and looking back on that. Yeah. Did you ever have the hockey groups come through?
Not really in high level.
Right.
High level, we were more of a rig pig.
Yeah.
We were like more of a working man's hotel, right?
Like
it was in the summertime, you get the odd tour bus or group come through, but in the wintertime,
to Alaska or something.
We were almost always full of oil field related or lumber.
Yeah.
We get a lot of loggers and that kind of stuff. In Unity, we had a couple where the kids would come, the hockey teams would come through, but wasn't a huge issue because you just kind of
stick them all on the floor.
They weren't on. Well, we had upstairs above the hotel in Unity, and then we had a motel.
Yeah.
And if you're in the motel, they can't get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
It's minus 20 outside. Go ahead, be jerks in the parking lot, right? Ever. And you'd make sure that all the rooms upstairs were hockey related. So if there's an issue and they're in the hallway, deal with it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the bar is going to be open till 2 a.m. So it's not the kids that are going to keep you awake in the hallway, right? It's the music coming out of the bar that's underneath you, right? So we never really, but I mean, we were busy when I was there because they were putting a pipeline through at that time. So we were almost full occupancy for probably, I want to say probably 90% of the time I was there, we were full. So we didn't have, like, I know there was a few times that the hockey parents got mad because it's like, no, I got no rooms available. Yeah. And I can't give you a room.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not kicking out the guy that's been staying in my room for 3 months so that you can have it for one weekend. Like,
exactly.
Doesn't make good business sense, right? And so there was a lot of times where we didn't necessarily get the hockey families.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And they would have to travel to Battleford to get rooms if they were playing hockey.
Right. Yeah. Well, it makes sense. And something you kind of already mentioned, and it dovetails nicely with a question I wanted to ask, and it kind of jumps us ahead a couple steps there, and I'm sure we'll jump all around here, but I was curious to ask you about realty. Yeah. And that's what you're doing now. And something you had mentioned about the hotel industry and how so much more of it was just about the interpersonal relationships with people. And that was more of what got you through and what made you successful more so than the actual probably managerial duties of it. Right. They're all important and they all play their part. But I was curious to specifically ask about realty because with my experience with realtors, so much of it on the end is you want someone that knows their shit, but more than anything, you're going to have to drive around with these guys. You're going to have to go see places and you want it to be a good hang too, right? The interpersonal side is so hard. And I'm curious to you, someone that's in the industry, because I've only seen it from the outside. What kind of split do you think it is between like knowing your shit and knowing how to handle people and just be a good dude?
Well, I think it's like anything else. I think, right, you got greasy people in every industry, so you gotta be careful how that goes. But realistically, I think if you don't know how to talk to people, you're probably in the wrong industry, right? Like I said, but
for sure.
No different than you in your management position when you're trying to strike a deal. If you can't have a conversation with a guy that's sitting across the table from you, he's probably not going to work with you.
Right.
And I'm sure I've come across that a few times where you've rubbed somebody the wrong way. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, I'm not trying to be the number one realtor in Alberta. That's not my goal.
Yeah.
I'd like to make enough money to get by and travel a little bit and do that kind of stuff. But I really enjoy working with people most of the time.
Yeah.
And, you do end up with some clients sometimes that maybe,
make you pull your hair out if you got some.
You got to work a little harder than others, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, that's your job and you do it, right?
Yeah, and it all evens out in the wash because you probably also, for all the real shitheads you get that you got to put a little extra in, you probably get some amazing people that you meet that are like, holy shit, that was a treat to sell you a house, right? Like I'm sure you get those people coming through too.
Well, and you do. You get you get some people that you still talk to, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't necessarily have like great relationships with, but at least
you're not going to Cancun with some of the guys.
But you chat with them or you see them. I'm based out of Spruce Grove, so it's a little smaller community. So you see some of these people around too every once in a while, and you bump into them, and it's like, hey, how's it going? And hopefully they don't tear your head off because you sold them a crappy house.
Floors rotted out or something.
Well, that's what we try to take care of that, and we try to make sure that you do the proper steps as you go through it. Do your due diligence. You get a good home inspector. Not a cheap home inspector. There is, a big difference between a few of the ones that, and I won't recommend somebody that I won't stand behind. Yeah. Right.
And that's important too. I'm curious, how much of learning that role was building those connections and knowing who the good home inspectors are, or is that something that kind of people
ongoing, right?
Yeah.
It's never,
you're always,
I'm 3 years into this now. And it's not an industry that you can go into and for most people and expect to make a living the first year.
Yeah.
Unless you have
a lot of friends.
Well, a lot of connections already, right?
Exactly.
You've already built those relationships and stuff. For most people, they say it's usually about year 3 where you start to make a living.
Make a living, hey?
And you look at
and is that very upfront before? Like, did you know that getting into it, or is that something you kind of found out?
I kind of had an idea of what I was getting into, and for me, and I worked, right? Like, I subbed almost full time for County of Parkland 1 year, and then I actually worked for an online school, and I still keep my foot in the door there, just to keep my foot in education and kind of know what's going on in the field and that kind of stuff. But
what's she chewing on?
I don't know. Sorry.
No, that's good. I as soon as I saw your eyes go over there, I was like, dog's probably chewing on something.
Yeah, right. Like I said, so now I lost my place, but it's a lot of guys getting in it. If you make it through the first 2 years,
it's a pretty good gig, hey?
You can probably continue to do it, but there's a lot of people that don't make it through those first 2 years because there's a lot of costs involved and not necessarily a lot of income. Yeah. Right? And I know I've seen realtors that have come in and done crazy off the hop too. Don't get me wrong. Like we've got
some people that are born for it.
I've got one lady that works with my brokerage, and she started, and probably within 6 months she was one of the top realtors in the area. But it takes a lot of time and skill, and she's grown up in the community and been there for years and is very outgoing and
then probably on top of that was putting in crazy hours and working really hard,
right? Yeah. And but for the average person, depending on what you're trying to replace too, right? Like I quit a teaching job. It's not like I quit a job at the Walmart. Yeah. So to try to replace that income, it wasn't realistic for me to replace that income in 6 months to a year.
And that's kind of where I'm always curious about things like that are well known within the industry, but people coming in. Like, I wonder how upfront that is. Like, one of the biggest examples I use is after going through university, I'll throw my pen everywhere. After going through university and seeing what a university degree really is versus what it was built up in my head. Yeah. I was like, man, I wish that was more upfront to kids of knowing what they're going into, what they think they're getting out of a college degree. Hey, don't eat my
so you mean you thought you were actually going to come out of university with skills?
Yeah. And like, I thought it was going to be
different than high school.
True.
It really isn't.
But that's what's sold to you. Of every teacher in high school is telling you, I'm just preparing you for this university. Everyone built up university. You need to know how to write cursive because you're going to university. I'm like, what? I don't know.
Somebody told you needed to write cursive?
That it sticks in my mind so much of whatever grade you learn cursive in. I don't know,
like 2 or 3. They don't even teach it anymore.
Exactly, right? I remember them saying, like, you need to know this. And that was, you heard that line so many times through junior high to high school. You need to know this because of university, right? We're preparing you for university.
But I don't disagree with that because the knowledge base is there. Is it going to help you in obtaining a job and being good at your job?
Arguably might make you worse.
Maybe. Yeah. But I mean, people still ask me, so why are we learning this? And you're in grade 12. Like I'm a math teacher, right?
Yeah.
So past grade 10 math, there is nothing that we teach you past grade 10 math that is likely to help the average student in life.
Right. Unless you're going into engineering.
Unless you're going into a specific field, the math that we're learning is not realistically going to help. But that's the same thing as university. We're not, it's not the math. It's the problem solving skills. It's the thought process where I have this issue and I need to find an answer.
Yeah.
How do I get to the answer that I need? Right. It's not about the content as much in certain subjects. It's not about the content. It's about the process.
Yeah, exactly. And that's some of my favorite educators, Brett and Heather Weinstein. I love their podcast. I listen to all the time. They're evolutionary biologists, and they're both professors as well. And they taught at this, Evergreen University or whatever in the States. It was in like the Oregon area there, pretty hippie. And it was kind of a weird kind of newfangled teaching idea where they kind of give you students for a whole semester. You kind of take them in and you can really show them, teach whatever you want. It's way more loosey goosey. There's no structure. Like everyone on campus, on the admin staff is all at the same level. It's very weird. But what they were talking about, and it all ended up blowing up and all this stuff. And now they're doing something completely different. But what they were talking about was, what university is supposed to be is exactly what you're talking about, is say it's math or say it's, chemistry. Chemistry is just the vehicle to teach you these problem solvings and how to think analytically, right? And the byproduct of whatever subject it is just the byproduct of, by teaching you how to think analytically, the byproduct is going to be you're going to pick up some knowledge acquisition in whatever that thing is. So you're just picking up which knowledge acquisition byproduct do you want of this analytical thinking that they're trying to teach. That's what it's supposed to be. Yeah. And I think that's what it used to be. Yeah. But it's so much fallen away from that to where it's gotten lazier and lazier, where it's just checking the boxes, which I think is very analogous to what high school has turned into a lot of times, checking the boxes and making sure you're only graded as a professor or as a teacher on how well these kids do on these tests. So you take all that away and you just make sure that they know the dates and the times and all this stuff. And that's completely fallen away. And that's my biggest argument of what I wish university was more. Well, and certain profs are still doing it. I shouldn't say that. It's not all.
Well, it depends on the course too, right? Like your business. Sure. I mean, I'm actually a business minor in education. Like, so it doesn't exist anymore, really. Yeah. Like, it was kind of funny. Because I'd done most of my minors courses, but by the time I actually went to teach, there was no such thing as a business teacher in a high school, right?
Which is crazy.
They didn't teach keyboarding anymore. You didn't teach spreadsheets. You don't teach any of the computer
spreadsheets.
Typing. Like, I mean, I learned how to type on an actual typewriter.
Yeah.
How many kids do you know that can come out of high school and know how to type? And I don't mean know how to type, but actually put their hands on the keyboard, don't look at it and type.
I can't.
And so, I mean, and that was something, that was the skills that we were teaching. We were supposed to teach as a business teacher. But you also took an accounting course. Mm-hmm. So there's a course that was probably useful to you, even in its most basic form.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like, you understand why there's these, what's the difference between a square bracket and a round bracket and a red bracket and a blue bracket? Mm-hmm. Why is it in this column? Mm-hmm. How does my balance
debits
sheet,
and credits?
What is a debit?
Yeah.
No, that's not a debit. That's a credit. No, that's a debit. Yeah. Right. Like,
it's on the wrong side.
It is, right? Like you said, and so many people don't. I mean, like you said, so there is courses that you do learn usable skills.
Yeah.
But when you get into your econ course or
an HR course
or some of these other ones, it's all about building people skills. And generally, you either have the common sense or you don't. So you need to build on that, right?
And what's so unfortunate, and I'm very glad you brought it there, because I think that's very important to say, of when I went through the business degree, right? Your first year is prerequisites, right? Yeah. So it's pretty much take some science courses, take some English courses. The only mandatory, you have to take stats, which fucking sucked. Yeah. Stats is hard. Holy shit.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to wrap. I sucked at it. Anyway, you have to take calculus, which I was in trouble because in my grade 12 year, they dropped calculus because there wasn't enough people in that semester. I was taking it second semester because I wanted to take sports performance. I didn't want to go play hockey. I'm not going to miss that, right? So I took that in first semester and they didn't offer in second semester. So I went in to first year university calculus with some... I
remember having that conversation with you, actually.
Yeah.
We talked about calculus. I think it was you.
Yeah.
And it was to make sure that you're in the right course.
Yeah. Because
there's 113, 114. When I don't know what the numbers are now.
That's exactly what it is.
113, 114, 115. And 114, you're supposed to have Math 31.
Yeah.
But it's effectively the same course as 113.
Yeah.
And they tell you that you're not, if you've got 114, but about half the kids in 113 have Math 31.
So that's exactly. So the first day of math 113, which is supposed to be the calculus if you didn't get to take it in high school, first day of class, you're in this big auditorium and they go, okay, who took calculus in high school? Every fucking person in that room raised their hand but me. I was the only one. And there's probably 100 people in that class. I was like, this is bullshit.
Well, but I mean, I'm same idea, right? Like, I mean, I came out of I graduated high school from Onaway, out in the middle of nowhere. At that time, went to much more amalgamated into the city now. But I mean, it was at that time you were kind of like super redneck. Yeah. But we didn't have calculus. I had one guy that I went to school with that took calculus and he took it by correspondence. But it wasn't offered. It wasn't an option. Same thing. I walked into that math 113 class and it was a huge theater. I was in the lecture theater in Torrey, and down
Torrey
in the
Turtle or Torrey basement?
Down in the basement. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, probably 300 kids in there. And you're like, same thing. It was about over half of them had calculus and you're like, crap. And then the teacher doesn't go through the basics, right? It's like, because some of those math teachers are so smart and so stupid.
At the same time, hey? Yeah. It's amazing.
I remember I had a prof, Dr. Moon. I don't know if I can say it. He might be dead by now. Yeah. And he would be the perfect example of what you're talking about. We're with with so much intelligence. Like he was a math guy. He had theories behind him. And, his name was on, there was the sun. If you look it up sometime, I think it's in there. I can't remember. It has something to do with some type of, I don't know, some kind of abstract math that I had to take to get my math major in education. And so it was the other prof from the U of A at the time was Dr. Sun.
Sun and Moon.
So it was the Sun Moon theory.
Yeah.
And I was funny because when I quit university in 96, 97, somewhere in there. And then I went back in 2002 and took a summer course because I needed this one math course. And I ended up with a prof and he was telling a story about this guy where they had put him in charge of the grad students one year. So he was the guy that was accepting grad students or not accept, and he wouldn't take a grad student. None of them are smart enough.
Yeah.
But here's the guy that I also took a basic level introductory math from him. And he chose his textbook based on the fact it was the only textbook that didn't have answers in the back of the book. But the textbook was based on a calculator and we weren't allowed to use a calculator.
Yeah.
So if I couldn't learn from him, I couldn't learn on my own.
Hooped. Yeah.
Right. And it was it should have been a Mickey Mouse course.
Yeah.
But it was probably one of the toughest courses
ones you had, right?
But it had nothing to do with the material. It had to do with the prof. And we're talking like not maybe really pre-internet, but like pre-internet.
Internet was different then.
It was different, right? Yeah. Like it wasn't like you could go to Google and find out how to do stuff. There was no such thing as YouTube. Right. It wasn't like you could watch a video. It was like if you didn't know how to do it from the book, you needed to find somebody else that could teach it to you, right?
Right. So, which is so funny when you bring up like YouTube, because like me growing up, having said that about like my math skills, I always thought I'm not good at math, right? And I think honestly what it was Courtney, I don't know, I'm trying to frame it as you think this because I think it's more of just a narrative that you get told of, I'm not good at math, but I think I just was never shown the excitement of math, right? Because nowadays I listen to so many podcasts on like with mathematicians and stuff, and I love it. And like them talking about this, like math is really cool if you have the right person to just get you past that entryway to show you that, because that's like the sentence, math is cool, takes you need to push that so far to get someone to actually believe that. Like you need to really run with that, right? But
you need to be the right type of person too, right? So
but with YouTube now and all these things, like they can really show it, and with visualizations, like it's just come so far that like it's an amazing new thing. And I'm curious maybe to ask you, where did that start for you? Because like now it took me so many years and all these amazing newfangled things to really show me what a love for math could be. When you found it, like how did you, or was that just something you thought it'd be easy to get a job? Or
no? Well, yeah, to some extent. I mean, I was always good at math.
Yeah.
Like math for me was one of those things, right? Like I said, I mean, it's like I never had to work very hard to do very well. But I mean, there's a little bit of a history there too. Like, so, I mean, my dad is a math teacher.
Right. That's what I thought. Yeah.
So my sister is actually, I mean, she's a teacher as well. Mm-hmm. She's in administration now, but I mean, her training is, her minor is math. Right. So she's got a math minor. Yeah. I think we spent that time growing up. You spend time playing cribbage, and you had to learn how to count hands, and we did logic problems. I mean, that was the stuff my dad was into. Yeah. So it was a way that you kind of did yourself. Right. Numbers always made sense.
Right. So you kind of had that. It was a little bit in the bones already. Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Still play any cribbage?
Not very often.
Not very often. When it comes up, if there's a board around.
I'll play. Don't get me wrong. I'm just
Same
not,
here.
it's
Same
not-
here. Yeah.
you
I always
know.
just have to caveat. I'm not very good. It takes me a couple. Like it's fine if you go on a vacation or something. There's someone there and you play for a couple. You pick it up quick too, but it's hard to kind of pick that up right off the top. I always like when I play with my dad. He always beats my ass because he's so. It's in the pegging and shit. Like when you can steal points and stuff. He always just ruins me. I'm like, come on.
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm
See, we
so
never
far
ever
behind.
played that one. If I played that way with when it was still now you could. We
Yeah.
never used to steal points because I'm pretty sure my dad would have creamed me every time.
Exactly. Right. That.
But as
that
you're
one
learning
rule
to
change.
see those patterns, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of grade 12 math in a game like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
If you look at perms and columns, and you probably don't remember all that stuff, but like you said, it's like there's a lot of it in these games, and we don't play them anymore.
Right.
I can't remember about when I started to stress it, but I know a lot of your diploma exams. There's generally a question about cards.
Yeah. I remember you saying that.
And I always go through now when I haven't been in a classroom for a few years, but I remember going through it and saying, okay, so you need to know this. You need to know that a standard deck of cards is 50. There's 52 cards in a deck.
Yeah.
And there is 4 suits. There is 2, hearts, 2 reds, 2 blacks, hearts, spades, diamonds, clubs.
Yeah.
There's 13 cards in each suit. And I remember having to explain that to a group of high school students.
It's crazy, hey?
And because they just don't play cards. Or if they play cards on the computer, and they don't really pay attention to the fact of what it's made up of. Yeah. So it's a different skill.
And if you think back to like, just rewind 20 years and you're in the year 2000 and you saw a math teacher explaining to a group of kids a deck of cards, they think you're crazy. Yeah. Right. Cause that was just so standard that everyone would know, but now just times are changing with that, right? Like that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, like, I had the Atari 2600.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like I never spent hours and hours playing video games, right? Like you could only watch River Raider or whatever the heck it was. You can only play like Octopus so many times. It's not the same idea. I think you don't see kids sitting and playing video games. So you wanted to sit with your friends and play a game. You played a board game. Yeah. And I'm sure kids still do, and I'm sure you still did as a kid 100%. And whatever. Yeah. But it's different, right? Yeah. It's not
and the percentages are dropping, right? It's
not a daily or a weekly occurrence. Like, it's
on a ski trip or on, you do it. Yeah. When you're sitting around, cause that's what I was thinking with cribbage, right? Like I don't play cribbage on the regular, right? It was something I'd play when I was over at my grandma's, or if we're on vacation or something, or, my parents play it every once in a while. Well, they used to, now they got this game. It's, do you ever play Sequence? Like it's a deck, like a flat deck of table with all the card things on it. And you try and play like Connect 4, Connect 5 on it.
They're getting old.
Yeah, exactly. So now they play that game, but it's with dice, and it's like Yahtzee, where they have, instead of the card faces, you have the hands, you have 3 rolls. So they play the fuck out of this game. They play it all the damn time. Like they just can't get enough, and they never play cribbage anymore. But it's just one of those things.
But it and it develops a different set of skills, right? Yeah. Like because I know I think you're into, like, you play a lot of video games and stuff.
I used to,
right?
yeah. I'm starting to get back into it now.
And whatever. And there is skills that are involved with that. Sure. Like you got to pay attention to what's going on. You got to do like there's skills that can definitely be developed.
100%.
But there's so many skills that are developed by playing games. Yeah. Right? Like your thought process, your logic problems, like how to solve stuff. You start thinking about, well, if I do this, this happens. Whereas if I do that, for me, I don't play video games very, very often. My Xbox, I still have an Xbox. Nice. I have a 360. It's been in storage for 2.5 years, right? So
still hasn't got the red ring of death on that thing? Holy man.
Yeah. Well, it's in storage. I don't know. I haven't seen it in 2.5 years. Right? Yeah. So, but it's a different set of skills. For sure. And I just think there's way more life skills learned, like in some of those stuff, because you're actually playing with numbers. Right? Exactly. You worked in the C store.
Oh yeah.
Can you count change?
Yeah. And I remember actually you asked me that same question, Mr. Fisk, in class in grade 11 or 12. You said, "Can you count change?" Yeah. And you said, and I said yes. And you called me and you said, "How would you hand me money?" And I said, "Change first, bills on top." And because you were trying to catch me on that, and I remember, and you're so ready to catch me on putting the bill down and then the cash on, or the change on top, and let it slide off.
Still one of my pet peeves.
Yeah, I know
it is.
Well, I've never, like, I just did it intuitively, but I'd never really thought about it, because to me stuff like that is so obvious that I would never. It doesn't even compute in my mind that someone would ever do it the opposite way, because of how.
But so many of your people today don't know how to count back change, right? Yeah. And so
how do you steal from a company if you don't know how to count all the change, right?
Well, but
overcharge,
if they can't punch it into the till, and that's why you get the bills first, because the change function comes back and says you owe your change is $11.56. So they count the bills, put it in their hand, they count the change, and then they hand this whole mess to you. And generally about half of it, I find about half the coins out on the floor.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, it used to drive me nuts.
Right.
But I mean, I worked in a store as I was 15, 16-year-old, and we had to count back change. It wasn't like, here's your
wasn't
change.
Done for you, yeah.
Well, it wasn't done. The tills had the function, but nobody ever used it.
Really?
It was, and you had to count it back.
Yeah.
Like if my boss had seen me go, here's your change, it's $11.56, I'd have got in trouble.
Yeah.
It's like, you count back change. So here's your silver, you know, it's $11.
Yeah.
We still had $1 bills back then.
Yeah.
You know, here's a 12, 13, 14, and 5 is 20.
Yeah.
And you counted it.
Yeah.
Money got counted back. Cause then there was no concerns.
Yeah. Cause you never hear people actually like verbally count it back, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I used to do that. I used to do that every once in a while. I wouldn't do it with every customer, but some customers I would. And I don't know what determined that. Maybe some guys that I could tell they didn't give a fuck. You know, you can you start to be able to read guys when you do it. Cause I worked in that C-store for, I don't know, I started when I was 13. I was still doing it till 16, 17. You know, a good couple of years in there. You start to read people like that and all those things, you know, who you can do that with. But yeah, it's interesting. You never hear people actually verbally count it back to you like that and make the change. And there's a certain, it has its own almost vocabulary of how you, like I remember in math at some point we had to learn how to, the language around numbers of how to pronounce it. And I think there was a big change coming. They were taking and out of the verbiage of saying, like, you wouldn't say like 3,200,000 and you know,
it's not
just
supposed to be there. Yeah.
Right. So, but I think that was a change at that time where they're saying it was just the comma was taking place.
Well, the common language is to include it.
Right. And they're just telling you don't do
it's
that.
not there, right? Like it's not 105, it's 105.
Yeah. But in the same way, it's funny with that cash counting back, there was the language to it. Yeah. Like here's your 15, this and 5 is 20, right? Like it had its own like language, and that's completely gone now. Like you don't ever hear that.
Not very often.
Until I heard you say, like kind of speak in that language, it almost re-triggered it. Oh yeah, I used to do that. Hey, like, that's interesting. Man.
And that was, like I said, and I was taught, that was a skill. I mean, for me, I mean, it was okay, but I was taught, I was shown it. And like I said, and if I didn't do it, it was explained to me that this was policy.
Yeah. That's how you do it.
And that's in a small town, you know, grocery store.
Yeah.
Like not.
Was that in Alberta Beach?
Yeah.
Was that at the little hotel motel store there, or what was it then?
There was 2 stores at that time. There was Colney's and Howard's, and I worked at Colney's for 2 years.
Yeah,
as a 15, 16-year-old. Yeah,
nice. Oh man, I probably had 90% of the people listening don't even know what Alberta Beach is, but my cousins and them all had a place there all the time growing. So I was always at Alberta Beach. So that's funny. I remember in grade 12 we made that realization that, you know, Alberta Beach. Oh yeah. Well, I think you said I think we ended up determining that my uncle or someone in my family was taught by your dad or something at one point.
Oh, could have been.
Yeah, I think so.
Dad never taught out there. Dad taught.
Or maybe it was someone in your family. I think we did a little bit of digging at one point in grade 12 there and kind of figured it out. Yeah.
My dad taught with Edmonton Public for 30, 20, a long time.
Did you live in Alberta Beach and commute all the time?
For the most part of it, yeah. So they moved here, I don't know, in the late 60s from Saskatchewan, him and my mom. And they lived in the city for a little while.
Yeah.
Then bought in Spruce Grove. And then I think I was 4 when we moved out to Alberta Beach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like, I know both me and my sister started school in Alberta, in Onaway, I guess, because there was no
school in Alberta Beach.
There was no school in Alberta Beach at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, so
what did you think of growing up there? Like, what was it like for a place to grow up?
Well, I loved it, and I still do, right?
Yeah.
Like I always tell people, because I show a lot of houses out there sometimes too. I mean, I like working in that area, and I always tell clients that, like, when I'm explaining the community, I always tell them to just realize that I am a little bit biased.
Yeah.
Because I grew up here and I think it's a great community. Mm-hmm. Does it have its issues? Absolutely. But
everywhere
does. So does everywhere, right? Yeah. Like I said, and I mean, in a small town, right? Mm-hmm. I still remember sitting in on my interview when I went to Slave Lake to teach, actually. Yeah. And at that time it was, somebody was away. So it was Mr. Zach.
Yeah.
And Mr. Zimmer was actually
Mr. Zimmer.
He was the acting vice principal the year coming in. So he wasn't the year that I applied, but somebody was gone on a leave and he went into acting.
Yeah.
So he sat in on the interview. And I think so much of the conversation when I interviewed for Slave Lake was about, I'm pretty sure I got the job over somebody else, not because I was maybe a better teacher or had better experience.
Understood a small town.
But I understood how to live in a small town. Right?
And for people that maybe are listening that never grew up, they don't realize how important, how crucial that is to have, right? Like if you don't, and I think we probably both saw it of teachers coming in that thought that it wouldn't be that big of a change, came in for a year or two and realized this is not for me. You know, like maybe teaching is, I don't know if it's teaching or if it's the community, but something of this equation needs to change. This is not for me. And for a lot of times it was that small town community. If you don't understand it, and some people, it's like a glove in hand. That's what's been missing their whole life. They didn't know, right? They grew up in a city their whole life. We've seen that, right? Lots of people marry into it or whatever it is, but you see both sides of it. It probably takes a certain type of person that gels with it nicely. But yeah.
But if you don't, like I said, and there's a lot of turnover in some of those rural communities because, like you said, people come up and don't understand what they're getting into, and it's. Right. It is what it is, right? It's a whole different animal. And especially if you're a teacher, a cop, chances are everybody, even though you don't know them, everybody in town knows who you are, right? And there's probably a couple other instances where you can say that too, right? Yeah. Like, so you have to realize that you really don't have a lot of privacy outside the boundaries of your own home.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a blessing and a curse because it sure you lose, it's a bit of a hit to a freedom, right? Like that's a touchy subject right now, but also on the other side of it is, it fosters a certain dynamic of when you know that, right? Like I had that a lot of, I wasn't a teacher or a cop, but I was Ingo's son, right? Yeah. And so many times I just
in Slave Lake,
in Slave Lake, and there are people, I don't know you, but you know me somehow. Oh, you're Ingo's kid, right? So I always kind of had to be on guard but it makes you operate a certain way of, somebody's always watching. I have to kind of comport myself in a certain way all the time. Like it doesn't matter. I just have to live this way, right? And it almost, it's kind of that lesson of who are you when nobody's watching, but it almost you're forced to learn that lesson almost, right? And and I think that's just another name for that, you know, that small town quality. And that was another thing that was very apparent to me when I went to university and saw people that grew up in not a small town and specifically in how they treated women. I was blown away. Yeah. I almost lost my mind just being at bars and just hearing something. I'm like, there used to be things that was said, and I just stand up like, oh, there's about to be a fight, or someone's about to grab a guy and take him outside. And oh, nothing happened, right? And it was like, man, and it just made me very proud of where I came from and very thankful for that because until I saw something different, I didn't even realize it. And there's a bunch of other ways, but like you are thankful for that small town growing, and like definitely the lessons that you learn,
right? Like you said, and I mean, it's a huge. You're right, it's a huge difference. And I know yourself. I've listened to enough of your stuff. Like you said, it was. You definitely had some eye-opening experiences when you moved into the city, and for you, it was very positive in the most part. Yeah. But you have to look back and understand some of that, right? And I thought it was funny because you mentioned it on the phone the other day, and you mentioned it in a podcast with somebody else about how when we talked about a year ago, where I told you had to be careful what you said about Slave Lake, right? Yeah. It's you just have to realize you got to take the good with the bad, for sure. And it's not a huge ray of sunshine in the city. Yeah, there's good and bad everywhere, and they all have their pros and cons, and that's just such a lesson for life of everything. It's not a place you live. It's a job. It's everything. There's always going to be good and bad, and it's all about mindset and just shifting your point of view to being able to see more of the good than the bad, and where you shift your focus, because you can find bad in everything, you can find good in everything. If you live your life where you're looking for the bad, you're going to find a shit ton of it, right? But if you're looking for the good, you can find a lot of good shit too, right? And it's just about where you are in life, right? And having said that, probably should caveat it with, there's a lot of external factors that control kind of where that narrative come from. You know, if you're getting just shit kicked around by life and stuff, it's a lot harder to look for the good, right? It is, and I absolutely 100% agree with everything you said. But I think the other thing people need to realize is just because you live somewhere and didn't like it, really common sense wise, unless you have, you're moving across the world, why would you put it down? Because you never know what's going to happen 3, 10, 5, 15, 20 years from now. You might not have liked it, and it's okay to say to your close friends, I didn't like it when I was there, and I needed to get on, and I needed to get out. But don't go ranting and raving about how bad Slave Lake is, or how bad. I mean, I didn't have a very positive experience in High Level. I worked all the time and whatever, but I still don't talk badly about High Level, because to somebody else, that's home. And to somebody else, that's like, this is the place that I want to grow up, and I love my family. I raised my family here, and everything was wonderful. And especially when you're in business or in education, business more so, right? You make a snide comment about High Level. The guy across the table is from High Level, and guess what? You just lost like one of your biggest contractors, right? For sure. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense.
And it's as quick as that too.
And it doesn't make sense to put stuff down when ultimately it has no bearing on where you are at this point in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was listening to a podcast the other day. There's a guy out of Lloydminster that started a podcast. He's a really good guy. He has some really interesting guys on, but he was talking, he also does this, these archive editions where he has these older people from the community, right, 80s, 90s, to come on and tell their story too, and just kind of document what they've been through. And he was talking to an older gentleman. I really like those ones specifically. He has kind of his two ones, but I really like those archive ones. Some of the stories that come out are just really cool. And he was talking to some guys about same things we're talking about, the small town community. And he was talking to this guy, and he said, I don't know if he was saying this is what he says or he knew a guy that said this, but he always said when new guys would move to town, he'd always ask him, oh, where are you coming from? Oh, Onaway, you're coming from Onaway. You know, how was it there? You know, like, or it was when they asked him, oh, how was Lloydminster? How's the community? People said, oh, how was it back where you came from? And they said, oh, it was kind of shit. You know, the people weren't very good. He said, well, you'll probably find more of the same here. But if they said, oh, the people were great, where it's coming from, if it wasn't for that, I'd be back there in a heartbeat. He said, well, then you'll probably find more of the same here. And it's just such a beautiful way to sum that, everything we just talked about up so perfectly. I was like, that's that wisdom of, like, you know, when you've been around the world and around the block a couple of times, that's the kind of thing to just, that almost summed up exactly what we're talking about in like just those two sweet sentences. I love that. That's just so awesome.
Well, and like I said, but it's something you don't think about, right? Because you're not realizing the impact they can have. And I had to be taught that too.
Yeah.
But honestly, like I had one of my mentors when I first started in the hotel industry.
Yeah.
And he's like, he just point out blank, and he was like more of your, you know, car salesman type guy. Like, but he was good at business. And his words to me were like, just because you left there, don't ever call it down. Yeah. It'll come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
And I was like, makes sense, right? Like, and from then on, like I said, I might have issues with things, but I don't have issues with communities, right?
Yeah.
Like Slave Lake was great to me, right? Like, you know, it's a beautiful community. I think kids had a lot of kids, not all kids, right? Like, but a lot of your students had some huge benefits by growing up there. They had access to stuff they never would have had access to if they were in the city, you know. But at the same time, it was time for me to not be there.
For sure.
Right? Like,
for sure.
Nothing bad.
Yeah.
It just was time for us to move on, right? Like, much like you said about Slave Lake too, to some extent, like in Slave Lake, I'm always Ingo's son, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But in Grand Prairie, probably wasn't quite as bad.
Right. It was completely different. Nobody knows me, right? But that was a whole different thing of going to Grand Prairie. And that's the same thing of like when people ask, well, you've lived in Grand Prairie for 4 years, how do you like it? It's been great to me, but I don't really know it. I didn't join the community. And in fairness, 2 of those years were COVID years. So you can't really go and meet people. But even besides that, right? Like good, bad, and ugly, I couldn't really tell you. Like I'm the wrong guy to ask, you know, like I could tell you how, like, you know, like our work world and our customers were. I can tell you how the gym I went to was, and I can tell you about the one restaurant I went to eat at. Other than that, I can't really tell you. And I've heard good and I've heard bad. It's probably the same as everywhere else, right? Something else that's interesting to me is you tell me you learned that lesson, right? That guy was a bit of a mentor. He told you that, and it stuck with you. And what's interesting to me is what things stick with you. And it sounded like it struck you that, oh, this is important. That seems really correct almost. And I feel like some things, if you can just explain it the right way where it hits you there, it sticks with you, right? And that was my biggest thing in high school. If a teacher couldn't explain to me why this was going to be useful or why this matters or why this is really, really true and there's no counter arguments, if they just said, no, just this is why it is and don't ask questions, gone. I would not remember that for life.
I think a lot of times it depends on who
for sure
it comes from too.
Right. For sure. And that was a big thing. I have a huge issue with respect, and that's always been, you know, I've had a really big issue with that of over time. I think that's why I got along so well with you, Mr. Zimmer.
Because we didn't respect either. I didn't respect you. You didn't
respect me. Exactly.
Good,
right. And that was probably a unique relationship maybe between me and you versus like me and Mr. Zimmer, me and Mr. Carlton. But that was
I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have said some of the stuff to Mr. Carlton. That you
definitely not. Definitely not. And that was funny. Mr. Zimmer was kind of in the middle because you had to be really on your P's and Q's, right? You could take those risks, and if you landed, you're good. But the negative effects, if you missed, were also very hard. Maybe not Carlton high, but you know,
with Zimmer, I think you had to pay attention to who was around.
For sure, exactly. But but we got the amazing benefit of having him take us to the hockey rink where he's in he almost entered our world of all these kids, right? And to a certain extent, he was very good at keeping those barriers up too, but allowed for a little bit more. And you're right. And you have to be, is this a class where we're doing weights on the stage and there's still someone could overhear, or are we freeing out at the rink? And it was 2 different people, right? And you still had to.
Well, but even the kids that are in the class.
For sure.
Like having a conversation with one kid that, you know, you can get away with saying a little bit of something too. And I still remember, I think it was you guys.
Yeah, I think I know the story that's about to come.
I still remember hearing this story, and it wasn't me. No, this was not me. There was a
Okay.
story between me and you that we talked about. I'm not going to go there.
All right.
That one's a little bit, I overstepped my bounds there really badly, but I thought it was funny. But I still remember, like, because your group of kids, you were a fantastic group of kids, right? Like, just all in all. And like, I mean, we got to know, there was probably 4 or 5 teachers that really got to know you guys very closely. Because, like, I mean, I taught grade 7, grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 math.
Yeah.
Right. And I know there was another teacher there, and I can't remember what it was. It was when you guys were in grade 9. And I'm pretty sure it was when you were in grade 9. Yeah. It was a science class.
Okay.
Something happened one day, and you guys were just
we were awful.
Walkers.
We were awful.
I don't know if it was your group of kids or not, but
it was my class specifically.
And it was like, what a bunch of fucking assholes.
Yeah.
But you know what? She also had a really good relationship with that group of kids.
For sure.
Whatever. Yeah. And there was never anything done about it.
Yeah.
Never anything said, because all the kids knew.
And we felt so bad because like we always pushed with that specific teacher. It was very fun to push, and that was kind of our dynamic, is we would push the barriers because it was kind of funny, and we liked to frustrate her, and it was fun, right? But that day was pushed too far, because specifically to that day I was starting to reckon, I was seeing that this was going too far, and I was trying to hold it. Okay, this is getting too far, and I was already.
I don't even know what caused it. I just remember
it wasn't even one thing. It was everybody. It just, some days there's something's in the water and everybody's going. Usually it was a couple, probably me and a couple other people that are pushing it mostly, and then. But for whatever reason, it was everyone that day. But that's the thing. And it was everyone, even some of the kids that never would do it were joining it. And it was too much. And sometimes you get on a run and everything's funny, and it's just, it's going, and things are cooking. And I started to recognize at first that something's going south. This isn't going good. And then, and she said, but that was the thing that I noticed, is everyone felt so bad in that classroom, of even the bad kids, that we all felt terrible, because we weren't trying to, we thought it was.
But it was the relationship that you had, right?
Exactly.
Like you said, if there was another teacher that had been next door, that the same thing would have happened. Somebody would have went home, and there would have been some irate parents there the next day.
People would have been calling.
And it was, as far as I can remember, there was never really any reason.
Nothing really came of it.
She felt really bad about saying it.
And the kids felt bad about pushing her to that point.
And whatever, but it was like, but had a pretty good relationship with that group of kids.
For sure.
And you can get away with a little bit more when you have that relationship, right?
And I think, and it was almost, and it was, looking back on that, I found that there's so many lessons within like that I think so many kids learned in that. And it was so awesome that that it just so happened that the relationships were built for it to happen that way, because I think that taught so much to so many kids, because we never got to that point again. Right. And people start, and whereas I can remember specifically in that class on that day, because that's burned in my brain. I remember the classroom, I remember everything from that. And I remember me starting to notice it first, and nobody else was kind of noticing. I was trying to, but then it already broke. But then from then on, when it would start to get to that point, it wasn't just everyone kind of, and we'd calm ourselves down. Right. And I wonder if, say, someone got involved, school board came in and tried to handle it themselves, and it wasn't allowed to handle it within that group. I don't think we would have learned, the same lessons would have been learned coming out of it.
The one that gets me is the fact that if you were to do that in a classroom now, there's very seldom that you wouldn't have at least one kid go home. Yeah. And it would become an issue. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like it might not be the whole class. For sure. It might be 50% of the kids would get it, and it was okay, and it wasn't like, it wasn't directed at me. I understand, and whatever. And I'm sure she probably apologized to the class and all of that kind of stuff too, but that was her own choice. Yeah. It wasn't that she was directed to do it.
Exactly.
She knew she had overstepped her bounds. But at the same time, like I said, if you were to do that in a classroom now, there's no way that there would not be repercussions over and above that, right?
Which is so unfortunate, because that's that is, for my money, what's preventing some of these big lessons that need to be learned, right? Like some of the more of the lessons on the side of what I was trying to say of what I thought university would be, right? Those are the interpersonal lessons that come, and I feel like so much of that, and it's becoming, for exactly the reason you're saying, of this culture of, you always can go tell, it's always got to be the safe bubble where nothing like that can happen. So then you never learn those lessons on the fringe cases, right? Like when they're talking about autonomous driving, so much of the steps forward in that is on the edge cases, the weird things when, a skateboarder falls off the curb, and this, it's the fringe cases that you need, but if you don't let the experiment, if you took autonomous driving off the real road, just put them on a closed course where none of that ever happened, you'd never, the AI would never learn, right? And that's what people are, is AI says, like, we're constantly taking in information and applying it and learning for more and learning patterns and stuff. And those edge cases are very important, right? And that's what my big issue with is, I mean, specifically university, but it's a symptom of a much bigger issue of we're taking away so many of those fringes. We're making everything so nerfed and everything so easy for people. You see it in the actual manifestations of how they operate in the world. Yeah. They're so like socially incompetent because they haven't learned on this, they haven't messed up.
And as students, maybe more so too, right? Yeah. But I think about your adults, like your profs in that case. I think that you have to be so careful how you present stuff. It's not that they don't want to get in some cases, right? Like it's not everyone, but in some of them they just know that they have to do it this way because if they do it the way they want to, they're not going to have a job. Right.
Exactly.
And depending on where you're at in life, that might be important.
For sure. Right. You got kids, you got
as I say that to the guy who just quit his job.
But I got no kids, I got no nothing, right? Where's that? And I understand that, right? Like that was the first thing I said when I made that move. I understand that, like, you know, like I talk a lot, I talk a lot about the value of that, of chasing what you want, of not falling into what society tells you to do. But I always want to make sure I caveat that with, I totally get that life is complex and you have responsibilities. Like I'm not saying, you know, if you got kids to feed, mouths to feed, that is the noblest thing and you're working a job you hate because you're trying to put foot. That is more noble than anything, right? Like I would never denigrate that. And I want to make sure that that's understood. Like in the same way as when I, you know, maybe have some negative things to say about slave, like I want to make sure I caveat that with all the other stuff. Because that's very important, right? You got to see both sides of this and make sure that you're not, because if you don't, you can really piss off a lot of people unintentionally, but nothing you meant to. It's completely just not fully understanding the breadth of what you're talking about, right? Like,
not looking at the big picture.
Looking at the big picture. And going back to something you said earlier about you know, so many of these lessons are learned through playing games, right? And I think that is so important. I think again, going back to Brett and Heather Weinstein, who are both evolutionary biologists, and they look at everything through the evolutionary lens, and listening to so much of their content, I start doing that all the time, always looking through evolutionary lens. And such a powerful tool, like when you look at everything through that, because that's the building blocks of how everything in society got there. You know, whether it's strict evolution, like the scientific evolution, the atoms and stuff, or evolution happens socially too, right? That's kind of how our brains work. Like the hardware is kind of where everyone looks at evolution, right? Our bodies, like gaining, you know, fins, flippers, all that, but also the software of our minds. That's also evolutionary and builds on all the same principles, right?
Sorry, you got fins?
just between my toes,
Sorry.
Vestigial tail too. But where I was going with that is so much of when they look at that, and then Jordan Peterson's also very vocal about this, about the play thing of, for thousands and thousands of years, we've been passing information and learning in a certain way, right? And that is verbally through games, all these ways. And then only in the last couple hundred has reading and writing and kind of the most basic ways that we teach now. It's very new to us, and it doesn't have as deep a roots. Whereas when you learn something through a game and you can learn those, like that is how we're innately designed to learn a little bit more. Humans are amazing. We can learn in a million different ways, but there's certain things, and it blows my mind that people are so surprised at the negative effects of losing some of those old things, like what gets passed on playing games and unregulated games without teachers watching. Just let us figure it out ourselves and all that, right?
And there was a push towards that.
Yeah.
But the problem is learning how to implement it and still cover material. Right?
For sure.
That makes sense. And I'm not like, it's not like you can't really blame anybody. You can't blame the government. You can't blame the teacher. You can't blame the curriculum providers. It's just,
it's a combination of all those things.
How do you bring it all together so that you can still cover the necessary material in the appropriate amount of time? Right. And it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not.
And you have to have the exact right group of kids to do it.
For sure.
And you have to have the exact right teacher in a lot of cases to do
100%,
it. Right?
100%.
Like I know it's called, like, because there actually is for high school, they call it game theory, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to learn all of this through playing a game.
Yeah.
And it applies to certain subjects very well. Like, but again, you got to know how to do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't get your outcomes, then who gets in trouble?
Yeah. Yeah. And what are the KPI? Like, how do you judge success on some of those things, right? Because that's where you'd have to interview the kids to see, like, what, because so many of the lessons that are being passed on in those things are very ephemeral, kind of, it's hard to nail down exactly what you learned. It's not like, okay, what date was the Spanish influenza, right? That's very easy. Do you know it or do you not know it, right?
Whereas I don't know it.
Me neither. 1918, I believe, maybe 1918.
Oh, 1918. Huh?
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong on that. I don't know.
Somewhere in there. It was the end of World War I.
Yeah. But I find that so interesting of, like, ways to bring that back in. And I think you already highlighted exactly the issues with it is, right? You have a certain curriculum of things you need to teach. You have a certain time you need to teach it. But then having said that, of going back to something we already talked about, of where if it's important or if it can be shown to be important or whatever it is, it really sticks with you, right? And like what I remember of social class is pretty hit and miss. If it twigged me the right way and it was something interesting to me, I'd remember it, and I still have it to this day. If I felt like I was just remembering it because it was, another checkbox to get on the test, I don't remember it at all. Yeah. But one of the things I remember the most was, and maybe me and you talked about this on the phone, Mr. Thompson, one year we were doing social and I think we're learning about the Russian Revolution maybe, and just with the curriculum, how they had scheduled, they took all World War I, all World War II out and just tried to teach you the Russian Revolution without the very important factors of the world wars going on around them. And Mr. Thompson kind of sat down with that special group of kids, like you've already mentioned, that I don't think this would work with everybody, but he sat us down one day because we were pissed about it, right? And I was probably one of the most, I shouldn't say I probably might have been more at the helm.
It was me leading this other group of kids who really didn't give a shit.
Yeah, I was very good at getting people riled up for my own causes. Yeah. But we're mad about that. Like, we want to learn about this stuff. Like, the most interesting stuff we want to learn is the World War II stuff. Like, that is fascinating to us. And you could tell he was like, I agree with you guys, but I've got to teach this curriculum. What do you want me to do? And then he came in on a Monday and he said, here's what I have for you guys. We can take 3 weeks out. We're not going to teach you the whole thing. We're going to put the wars in and we're going to teach it to you. But that is going to put us 3 weeks behind on all the stuff you have to learn. So you guys are going to have to work extra hard. We're going to have to crush this timeline up. And I don't want to put that on you guys if you don't want to. So we're going to do a vote here. What do you guys want to do? Treat us like adults. We all voted. It was unanimous. We all want to learn this stuff and we're willing to take that on. And that's what he did. Oh, wow. And I remember that 3 week period of what he taught us with the Rasputin and all these things. Yeah. I remember that more than any other thing we did.
You didn't have to learn that?
Well, I don't know what, I think it's kind of curious because I don't know what we would have learned.
Well, no, I'm just like you said, I mean, I'm old.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
And I mean, World War I, World War II was like Social 10, I think, was World War I, and Social 20 was World War II.
Yeah, we didn't learn anything about World War I or World War II in any of social. Wow. I know immense amounts about it because of Dan Carlin Hardcore History podcast, which I love, who he tells stories like, in a 5-part series, 6 hours each of like the whole World War I.
Maybe you're forgetting that can't be true.
So maybe the amount they skimmed over it.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm not a huge, I enjoy history to some extent too, but I'm the same as you. Like if it's neat or it's interesting or whatever, right? Like you learn about it. But at the same point in time, I mean, the object of teaching history in class is so that we don't repeat the same mistakes.
Exactly.
Right. And I mean, we still are. We're still going to repeat some of them, but at least we're paying attention to what's going on. Like, I mean, it's kind of like depends on how you look at stuff. I kind of was scared to touch this subject with you. I know it's going to bring some shit up that I really don't want to discuss. Yeah. But I mean, it's like, what was the cause of World War II?
People want to test out their new weapons. No, I mean, that's a real cause. But like, Franz Ferdinand assassinating that
was the catalyst.
Yeah.
But what was the real reason? Right? Like, if you actually look at the cause of World War II was World War I.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And economic sanctions against Germany and all of that Treaty of Versailles and all that stuff.
Which allowed all of these other things and atrocities and stuff to happen.
And when you look at it, and there's also all these economic things under, and I was a bit tongue in cheek there about saying that people want to test a new, and that would be more World War I. World War I, when you look at World War I and the reasons why that started, there was so many people just sitting there putting their fingers because they had these amazing new weapons. And the only recent war they had was, I think, the Spanish-American War, where they saw America come in with these, these steamships with all these guns on them and absolutely destroy the entire Spanish Navy in a morning, right? And they were like, holy shit, what is it? Like, what is the next war? So they had all these people just sitting there, really wanted to try all these new weapons. And it's really sad to look, but it's important. But that's exactly why that's important. Of when I learned that, but I learned that from Dan Carlin, and he really highlights all that and tells the story and all the documented reasons for it too. But he also shows the underpinnings of, this is all, like, when you read a history textbook, this is what's going to tell you what started World War I. But there's also all this, and this isn't proved, but if you look between the lines, there's probably some sort of effect that this had on it, right? But that is so important to know that. Of if you walk through the world thinking that World War I was started on nothing but moral justice and moral reasons
greed.
Or whatever.
There's always greed.
Yeah, but if that's not highlighted to you, you don't realize that. And then when it happens again, right? When the reason you learn history is to recognize when you see things happening, you see things happening that are very similar to that, and it raises huge red flags to me, and I almost, my stomach turns. I lose my mind because I've read so much of this stuff, and then you look around to all your friends. Well, what are you worried about?
But it's, and I look like one of these because I know where you're going, and I'm just kind of
we'll move away. Shuffle
skirt that issue a little bit. But there was no reparations after World War II, right? Because that was probably the biggest reason that we got where we did in the 1930s in Germany, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's, like you said, and that's kind of like a very broad.
For sure. Yeah. And there's a million more things you could add to that.
Absolutely,
it's just
but it was one of the things that people actually realized. The fact that we made Germany pay for every issue that
let France take all their economics.
Like, who's not going to fight back eventually, right? Like, there's going to be a point in time where somebody's going to have to rise up. Right?
It opens the door for a passionate, charismatic person to fill that void and to take all that anger and that's what of all those lessons of Highland of. When there's anger in a community and there's real hurt, that is such a dangerous place because it's just leaving the door open for someone either good or bad. You can have someone really amazing come in and really take that emotion and really drive something powerful, or you can have someone like Hitler that came in, took it for his own means, right? It's not applying any judgment call to that. It's just understanding the economic and social and all the other forces that are at play that allow for that to happen. And then to look out for that in the future, right? And to know that, hey, we're in kind of a scary time. Like, that's what I look at right now is there's a lot of that happening right now. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of that. And what worries more than that is just what that sets the stage for. And you just got to be on the lookout for that. And it's just things to be aware of, right? But you only would recognize that if you had read those histories. Yeah. And that's what puts the importance on doing that.
But
right?
You still have to, there still has to be an underlying reason why you're interpreting it the way you're interpreting it, right? To some extent. Like, I mean, there's more to it than just that. For sure. Because I know you're kind of getting into this stuff right now, and I try to stay away from it a little 100%, bit. Yeah. Absolutely. Because I just don't really have an opinion. Mm-hmm. Like, I really don't. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, it is what it is, and I'll do what's best for me.
100%.
You do what's best for you.
Yeah.
That's the way and I said, but it's because to me, the problem is the 10% on either end.
100%. Yeah. And it always is.
Right.
Right. And that's what's so funny is I feel like right now that's very highlighted and people are starting to see that. But what's funny to me is like, that has been true for entire history, right? And through all these things over.
Except for, I don't know, like I agree with what you're saying to some extent. Yeah. But the problem is, I mean, because of social media, because that's generally where you see most of this stuff now, right? You got your keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
But the people that I see, so the people that I know, so not necessarily on some public forum that I'm on where it's just some random Joe, but somebody that I actually know and who is, grew up with or knew into history, I find that the people that are the most obstinate on either end of the spectrum are not people that I would trust to babysit my dog.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Like, it's not a nice way to say it, but you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what's so unfortunate is now that fact is very true, but then anybody from, so that's the 10% on either end, right? Yeah. And to me, I would probably push, if I wanted, I know you're just making a point and the numbers are arbitrary, but I would push that it's probably more like a really loud 1% on each end. Okay. But then everyone gets painted, but then everyone from the 1% out to probably 15, 20% gets painted with that 1% brush. Yeah. But they become more realistic and more reasonable in their arguments and stuff, but you don't even get to hear them because everyone just, I'm not going to listen to you. You're those 1%ers. Fuck you, right? And nobody listens on both sides. I'm not even making an argument for one side. Yeah. It happens on both sides, but that's what breaks down the discourse and allows for things like we see.
No, and we chatted about this the other day too. Like I said, like I can have a conversation with you, and I know our viewpoints on COVID are not the same. We're not necessarily as far apart as some.
Yeah.
But
someone's backing up a bobcat out there. Yeah.
But it's the fact that I can actually sit with you, Nick, and I like it because I can have a conversation.
Exactly.
And I'm not gonna. The first words out of your mouth aren't gonna be "you're a fucking asshole."
Yeah.
And you're a sheep. Yeah. Or fuck you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Or how many people must die. Yeah. Or like whatever the theory of the day is. Exactly. It's like I can sit and have a conversation with you, and in order to achieve better, we need to be able to have meaningful discourse. And you can't have discourse when the first
exactly
initial reaction is fuck you.
Exactly. And that's my biggest problem is mine is not even equating myself with one side or the other. The fight is it's what I see is exactly what you just said, and what I see is forces at work that are forcing it to be that way, that are painting division, that are keeping it that way to prevent discourse from happening. Yeah. And I think I think if that were to happen less and more people were to talk, I think there'd be a lot more people asking some questions about how this has been handled and just right on both sides, like people would come together and just really, we would start, instead of everyone's so busy pointing the fingers across at their brothers, at the same point as that nobody's pointing up. And that's exactly why. And I see so much forces that, just pushing the hands down to keep pointing across the way to stop them from pointing up at the real the ones that have control to actually make these calls. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's perfect. No, and that's what's so amazing about having a podcast like this is I know every time I sit down, I'm so willing to have and I'm never going to go to that place, right? That's just not who I am.
Well, you might, but
it'd be I'd be pushed that way, and it'd be documented of what pushed me up. I would never start at that point, right? If I got pushed that point or someone was doing it to me, I still probably wouldn't, but you probably see me get fired up in an argument, right? It can get to that point, right? Like,
I don't know. I don't remember, like I said, I don't really remember ever having an argument with you. I do remember, I think it was grade 12. It was switched. I do remember you coming into class one day, and it was right near the beginning of the year, and I was like, Nick, you know what? It's going to happen this year, and I'm going to ask you to leave.
Yeah.
You're adult enough. Mm-hmm. When I ask you to leave, just go.
Get the fuck,
because the reason for it is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Whether you're being an asshole or I'm having a bad day, whatever, you leave. And we're good.
And that was so good for the rest of the year of what that said, because that was exactly it. And because you said that, when I would get kicked, it was, and I didn't mind, I'm going to go walk down the hall. I'll go find something. I got kicked out of a lot of classes. I could fill my time when I was out in the hallway or walking around. I loved it, right? Like that was probably half the reason I got kicked out of other classes, right? And I think it was a little bit different with you because I didn't mind being in your class to begin with, which most classes I was doing anything to get out of, right? Like, but that dynamic that said of just taking away, and saying it like that, of, you know what, sometimes it's going to be me, sometimes it's going to be you, is so refreshing to be. And again, like all these things that I'm telling you of what I loved with your teaching method versus some others was the respect and the being treated somewhat like an adult. I've given you a little bit of that instead of which, and I don't want to put judgment calls on that because I think it's so difficult to wrangle 30 kids and to do that. How do you treat everyone with the specific respect that, or whatever they need? That's impossible, right? And that's a high ask. But when someone was able to do it, or maybe it just came more natural, or maybe just our personalities allowed us to develop that on our own, that was so amazing for me. And it's just,
well, I'm sure I got kids out there that hate me.
I'm sure,
right? Like, I mean, nobody's perfect, right? But I mean, we did get along very well, right? Like I said, but it's,
but that's always one of the biggest ones that I highlight that one with was Mr. Carlton was, you know, he was a disciplinarian and so many guys, like, and mostly it was guys didn't like Mr. Carlton. I fucking loved Mr. Carlton. He was one of my favorite teachers, but I knew his lines and I didn't cross them, right? And
your expectations were very black and white.
Exactly. And I didn't mind that. And some people really didn't like that because I think he didn't take no bullshit. And even when people would be lying to themselves in a way, like he didn't have time for it. He was just put it through. But to see that, and I think that was very eye opening for me because going into everyone, have you had Mr. Carlton? Right? Like, because I had the Discover brothers, right? So I had them and they had gotten in trouble. So I was always hearing, have you gotten into grade? Have you met Mr. Carlton yet? And so I was always so scared to go. And then I met the guy.
I would be willing to bet you that at least two of those Discover brothers probably have a shit ton of respect for Carlton too.
They do, and they love him too, right? I was just using that example. It probably wasn't those guys specific, but I always was with the older group. More of what I was saying is I was always involved because I was friends with Drew, who's a year older. I was friends with Derry, who's a couple years older than him. So I always had different friend groups that was older because I'd always be over at their house. So you'd hear from all their friends and stuff like, I got shit from Carlton. But but what I loved was with that sports performance class where him and Mr. Zimmer would take us to the hockey rink. And again, it would take us out of that zone and into that. It created a dynamic of respect, and you see people that were within those classes had a much, much different view of him than just if you didn't have him teach anything. He was just the disciplinarian for it. And obviously, you're going to hate the guy.
Generally a little bit more of a love-hate guy. You either loved him or hated him. There was not a lot in between.
Yeah, but I love to see that of fuck what everyone else says about it. Until you meet the person, don't make a judgment call because he could be the greatest guy ever, right? Like, and
sports performance probably was a little more fun too because. I don't know that I ever actually saw anything serious, but I'm guessing that Carlton could probably skate fucking circles around 90% of the kids,
and he
maybe 98%.
Yeah, and what was so awesome was he was stern out there, but he was like chippy and he would hack and slash and stuff, and you could give it back to him, right? Like as long as there was a very fine line, but he played hockey and he knew, and like it was amazing to watch people like get into shit and like. The lines when you're on the hockey rink is so different than his lines anywhere else, right? And there was a little bit more give and play. And he would give you shit, but if he, give you a hard cross check and you gave him one back, like you think you cross check a teacher, right? Like fuck, you're gonna get in shit. No, that was part of the game, and he wouldn't give you shit, right? If you pushed it too far, then you'd be in trouble. But as long as it was within the realm of the unwritten rules of hockey, he loved it, right? Like I remember there was one year where we. The rink. I think it was when the rink was getting rented, and we didn't have it. So for the first couple of weeks, we had to go up to High Prairie for hockey. So they load us all up on the bus, and we go to High Prairie, and we go there, right? And I remember it was one of the first classes, and we're playing a scrimmage, and there's no hitting when we go out there, right? And there's one kid, I'm not going to say his name, but he's a pretty big guy, tall, and he was a little bit newer to hockey, and he was very good he had very nice hands. It was a big dangler, but when there was no hitting, he'd be pulling all these dangles, but head right down. Like if this was real hockey, I would run you the fuck over. I hated it. It would bug me because that was always my skill in hockey. I was a hitter, right? Like I didn't have much skill. That wasn't the role I filled. But one day, I don't know what, because this is very out of character for me. One day he was just coming over the line doing a crazy dangle between the legs with his head right down, and just something snapped him. I just stepped up and threw a hit at him and just put him right on his ass. And I'm like, fuck. I turned to look at Carlton, right? Because I thought I was just about to, and he's leaning over the boards and goes, keep your head up. And I was like, fuck yeah, right? Like he didn't say shit, didn't get me in trouble, but I was so sure. But I think he probably recognized of exactly what I was feeling in that moment, and that this was out of character for me. And I was probably frustrated that he kept doing this stuff.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, nobody got hurt.
Nobody got hurt.
Somebody learned a lesson.
Exactly. But I was just that moment of fear and just how amazing that was to have him recognize that.
And realistically, I mean, at that level, like, and not even so much that level, that age group.
Yeah.
Guys get hurt.
Yeah.
Like you're serious, like you can offer some serious injury if it's done right? Guy needs to learn to pay attention to what's going on, right?
Exactly, right? Because now 2 weeks later, he's in a regular season. He tries to pull that coming across the blue line. Yeah. It's not going to be someone, just throwing a hit just to. If I would have actually stopped full force and tried to hurt him, I probably could have really and obviously exactly. And in fairness, there was no hitting, so he wasn't prepared for it at all. But either way, the way he was down, his head was completely between his legs. He wouldn't have seen it coming either way, right? And I think that's probably. But to be able to in that moment make that judgment call for all of that, right? Like for all the stories you hear, like that's truly what those are character moments to me, and that's like what I judge people on more than that is like those moments is again the fringe cases, right? Like that's what's important, and I think leaving those that so many lessons are in the fringe, and that's what we need. We've already kind of discussed the difficulties in allowing those and finding that balance between allowing some fringe without having people getting hurt and feelings getting hurt and trauma being laid on people. It's such a fine balance, but I worry that so much. Everybody understands the positives of making people safe and comfortable, right? Like that's very apparent, and it really tugs on the heartstrings. But it's so much harder to explain to people the positives of the negatives of the fringe cases of the kind of getting hurt. That's a lot harder to show the positive source. So we're kind of just slowly.
You got to learn how to push.
Yes.
Without, hurting.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like
for sure. And that's like it's easy to throw stones at it, but it's, come with solutions. I always say that, I hate when people just bitch without trying to come up with solutions. That's why I love this podcast. Cause when I bitch about these big things, I can at least try to throw my 2 cents on what I think. Right. And I'm not in the position to change anything, but at least that's just for me. I need to do that to make sure that I'm not becoming something that I don't like in other people. Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. So realty, I want to ask more realty questions.
All right.
First of all, I guess the first guy I meant to start with this question, but how much do you enjoy it? Like, is it something you?
It's something I quite enjoy it. I mean, it's the same thing. Like some weeks are crazy.
Yeah.
Like you just don't stop and, and whatever. But I love the fact that I still get to interact with people, still get to deal with people because it's, always been part of who I am.
Yeah.
Whether it was working in the store, working in the working in the hockey rink, working in the whatever it was, right? Like you always were interacting with people. And it's something I need is to be able to deal with people. But I also need to, not be in a situation. I need to be in right. And you can learn about it.
Right.
It's something where there is a skill set. And I mean, I'm not the best salesman in the world, but I tell people that. It's like, I'm not here to make you buy something you don't want.
Right.
I'm here to help you and guide you through the process.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can choose whether we work well together or not. That's something that you have to decide. Right. But,
what kind of things surprised you going to what ideas did you have in your head about it that once you got into it, and I think that's with everything, you kind of always go into stuff with a little bit of an idea of what it's going to be like, and then once you actually do it, you find that it's maybe a little bit different or a lot different. Well, do you remember anything that kind of surprised you with it, or did you have a pretty good handle on it going in?
I mean, I had some ideas, right? But whatever. But it's like anything new.
Yeah,
I think just the amount of work that can be done, and sometimes the amount of work that can be done that doesn't need to be done. Right?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So you go in, that makes a lot of sense.
You go in and it's like, oh no, I got to do this. 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 And then you're exhausted and you go, fuck, why did I do this?
Yeah.
And it's because you could have got, it's like getting from A to B. Sometimes, the shortest distance is the best, right?
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
And it's, right. Does that make sense? Like,
it makes exact sense. When hearing you say that just really brought me back to university of going into the first year and being like, holy, I don't know any of this, and just learning all the stuff you can do, right? And like, and you know, you need to study, you need to do this, you need to go to every class, you need to buy every textbook, you need to do this. And then second year, kind of, maybe I don't need to do all that. That was really hard, and I probably could get the same marks with a little bit less effort. Let's try and experiment. Maybe I don't need to go to every class. Maybe I can maybe I don't need to buy every textbook. Versus the fourth year, I didn't buy a textbook. I didn't go to any classes. I didn't do anything, right? But I had figured out how to game the system, right? And I would have it in my head like, okay, after the first midterm, if I'm really in trouble, my marks are in row, then maybe I'll go buy the textbook. But I hated seeing these professors that so clearly had never worked a day in their life, went to university, got a job at university, never actually went out and did any business. They're teaching business. They wrote a $300 textbook that they're forced to sell you that you have to buy.
That's their business.
That's their business.
I had I did actually have one prof that it was an econ course, and it wasn't really an econ course. It was like it was more like a social course. So it was like
environmental econ. I took a lot of those.
No, it was like econ. It was like the social effects of living in the North or something like that, right? Like it was social economics. That's more so than, but it was considered an econ course. And he had written the book, and he looked at us at the start of class, and he says, "This is the book that I take most of the material out." He says, "But realistically, we're going to talk about so much other stuff. You only need 22 pages of this textbook or something where it's actually, you know, useful." He says, "I'll make 37 cents a copy. I don't care if you buy it." You know, but there's 19 kids in the class. It wasn't like 347 kids, right? Like, so like realistically, he wasn't making, it wasn't life-changing money. Right.
And I definitely had those professors too, where either they'd say that if you don't really need to buy it, right? Like I'm not going to put it on you, or they'd say it's $300 in the thing, or if you go on this link, you can find a PDF version for free, right? And they would do that. And that little thing that we do at the start, that was such a big indicator to me of what that professor was going to be for the semester, was right there. What type of guy am I working with here, or girl, or whatever it is, right? Like those moments really impact the rest of the semester, and it kind of gives you a really big heads up on what you're getting into, right? Whereas if it's, no, you need this textbook, you need to come to class, there's going to be...
Seriously, you're 100% right too. You need to look at who the author is. Because so many of them just sell I'm sure I agree with you on that. And I could be wrong, but they sell the book because they wrote it. Exactly. Not because it has any use at all.
Yeah. And you see the profs that say like, you don't need this, right? And they're not structuring the whole course where if you don't have that book, you're going to be hooped. Whereas when it is one that they're trying to make their money off the book and stuff, they make sure that they make it as difficult on you as possible to not have this book. And it's all the whole class is structured on you're reading these from the book, right? And all this stuff. And that pushed me for the further you push to make sure that I forced to buy your fucking book, the harder I'm going to try to pass this class without buying your fucking book, right? Which is maybe more personal to me and how I operate with a lot of things. It probably says a lot more about me deep down than a lot of other things. But like, that's what it was, and that's what I recognized. But then from there, in talking about of who the information is coming from and how much it sinks in and really comes to you, man, is it hard to learn from once you lose that respect and you're on that side of it, it's hard to really take. I was learning just enough to pass this class, not to actually take anything with me whereas when there was a couple of really great professors where I really took a lot out of it, right? Like the Excel course I took, man, does that still help me out to this day? That helps me out. That was an amazing class. I think that should be in every degree, right? To learn how to use Excel. It's just,
it should be in high school.
It should be in high school. It's ridiculous, right?
Now you wouldn't use Excel. Now you do it all on Google Sheets.
Google Sheets, right? Or just some sort of spreadsheet work, right? Like it's amazingly useful for life, right? The accounting courses, the first, there's two kind of,
even it's useful. You might not use it in the detail that you learn it, but at least the information is there.
It's useful for understanding the word. I think there's certain things some things are useful in how you're going to actually have to use them in life, and some things are useful just to add to your worldview to be able to understand things. Things make more sense, right? Like so many of those econ classes I took, I don't really use them day to day, but it helps me understand political issues. It helps me understand businesses. It helps you understand so many of those things. Like I said, like learning from Brett and Heather Weinstein, all this evolutionary stuff, that worldview lens that I'm learning from, like some of the information, like learning how Madagascar lemurs that doesn't really have much use to me day to day, but the mindset and how they look at things and applying that to everything you see has been endlessly helpful, right? And it's about how do you articulate to these kids that are going to be learning this, how is this going to be useful to you? Like, and also it's such a tough job to teach all these kids. And now you also, not only do you have to teach them, but you also have to prove to them that it's going to be useful. Like, fuck, who's going to do that? And I'm sure there's some teachers that just love to teach, and that's what they want to do, and that's their passion. But I think if you're going to look for a whole, faculty of those people, you're going to be out of luck, right? Like, that's not going to happen.
And people out there the same way. Like, there's so many people that have very minimal formal education.
Yeah.
That are some of the most intelligent people you've ever met.
100%.
And there's some people that have ridiculous amounts of formal education that are like
idiots.
Seriously, how do you tie your shoes in the morning? I understand why you're wearing slippers.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, like the Velcro embarrasses people, so I just wear the slippers.
No, but you know what I mean? Like I said, it's like, but you have to really understand that the only way to truly learn stuff is to experience it.
Right.
So hopefully when you go to school, you get enough basic information so that when you get into the position to experience it,
right,
you're capable of moving forward.
Right. And to look back and also like that, I was lucky that I had a decent amount of real world business experience going into it, so that I could recognize in the moment when they're teaching this stuff, how applicable it would be, how much does that match up to what I've seen so far. Whereas if you don't have that, you're taking all this information, and now the next 4 years, once you graduate, you're going out to the world, you're now discarding and remembering, now this is coming, they're experiencing it, and it's almost solidifying what information that they take forward, right? Whereas I got the benefit of right after I graduated. I think that's probably the only reason I was able to hop into that role at 23 years old, where I had 60 staff and a multi-million-dollar a day operation that is in charge, and if I fucks up, it's my fault, right? Like, I don't think I could have done that if I had never worked before, just went to university and then tried to hop in there. I would have been fucked.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Like, there was no way I could have done that. But with that benefit, and I understand that when you drill down to that further, is that was not really a choice either of I was going to work, right? Like, that was hammered into me from my parents of like, no, you're going to work, right? And how lucky I was to have that, among a million other things, right? Like, just, I'm so lucky to have the family that I had, and I'm very appreciative of that now. And I think maybe I was less appreciative of that when I was probably around the time you knew me.
No, and I think a lot of the times it depends on who you are too, right? Like, it's because Slave Lake's a prime example of the most millionaires per capita in. Definitely, probably in Alberta, we'd be right up there with,
it's up there.
There's a large number of people who have a large amount of money,
and there's also
and you wouldn't even know
the lower end too.
There is, right? But you walk down Main Street in Slave Lake, chances are you walk by somebody who has a ridiculous income, money, lifestyle, whatever. You may or may not even realize it.
Right.
There's a lot of these guys, like your dad, started with nothing, and worked really hard to get where they are, and I find that you see it in their kids once they get out of school.
Yeah.
I can think of two kids in particular that, had a lot of leniency as growing up, didn't work very hard in school. If the kid got in an argument with a teacher, I'm looking at it from the teacher point of view, then the parents would come in and or generally one of the two parents would come in and raise a stink, depending on which one was which. But then, think, oh, this is great. They walk around, and then it's like, what are you going to do when you graduate? Well, I'm going to go work for my dad. And then you talk to them like a year later, and they're like, or you talk to somebody else. Yeah, he started pushing broom.
Yeah.
So they're not walking into these, like you said, these roles. It's like, no, you're not qualified to run this company.
Right.
And the only way you're going to be qualified to run this company is if you know how to do what I had to do to get here.
Right.
And it's amazing to see the transformation in some of those kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny to see, like, that transformation is going to happen. Like, if you get into a role like that, you're going to learn some shit, and you're going to learn in a hurry. Right. But you can almost see what the building blocks you're building off, because like in this role in Grand Prairie, some of the customers are pretty big wig, and you get to see some of these guys that are running their dad's companies or something like that. Right. And you get to see, like, sometimes they're really capable in certain areas, but you can tell that they're really missing in some areas of just like, they can really, keep a job running, do things, but like sometimes it's the interpersonal of how they treat their staff or how they do certain things. You can just see there's certain pieces that are missing. It's like, oh, you can tell that you didn't have the full base.
No, for me, like, I'm saying it's a good thing, right? Like
sure.
I said, I'm looking at these couple of the kids that figured that they were going to walk. I think of, and like I said, I know there's two that I think of in particular, two boys, and they thought they were going to run in. Their first job was going to be, they're going to run the company.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, here's the broom. Get at it, bitch.
Yeah.
And this is their dad, right? Like, this is your job.
Yeah.
And every time you fuck up, George is going to tell you, you fucked up. And you need to have that experience, right? Like, you need to.
And I think maybe that's maybe what I'm pointing to more is when that doesn't happen, when they don't hand them the broom, even maybe they don't hand them the keys, maybe they hand them something in the middle where they, you're in some sort of managerial position where you have some sort of split. And that's, I think, where I'm seeing. I think if you do get handed the broom, you're going to learn all those lessons. You're going to learn the hardware, and it's going to be painful, but eventually you'll get there, and you'll have seen it from the ground up, and you'll have the experience to see it. But when you start up a couple rungs, you miss out on everything underneath. And starting from that, you'll still.
And I'm looking at the other end of it. I'm looking at the kids' expectation going into that, and just getting shattered. Oh, right. Man. But how much they grew for sure because of it. Right?
Well, growth. Everybody wants growth. Nobody wants what comes with growth. Pain. You grow from pain, or pain might not be the right word, but it's a standard, right? All that stuff, and that's so common with all this stuff. And just once you can understand that small mindset shift to understand that. Everybody wants growth, but what comes with growth, once you understand that, it makes going through those things a little bit less because you're now seeing the carrot that's coming along with the stick. Whereas if you don't see the carrot, it just feels like you're getting hit with a stick, right? Like, fuck, like, yeah, exactly. I'm sure we all have been there some point in our life, right? Like understanding that, but it just helps you, it helps you to view things and keep that forward momentum, keep the positivity, not get kind of drummed down and down and out. Sorry, dog. Did I scare you? I dropped my phone. Poor little thing. Hi.
Oh, and she's been being so good.
She's been so good. I think it was taking her for that long run before the podcast. Now she's, oh, look at you.
Rub my belly.
Yeah.
That's a rub my belly look, Dad.
Oh, I love that dog so much. Oh, I can't even stand it. Sometimes I just look at her and it almost doesn't feel real that I have a dog. Because I wanted a dog for so long. Just great. A lot of work though. Holy man. I thought growing up we had dogs and stuff, but you have a whole family to take care of. When it's you taking care of, wow. Yeah. That is a whole different story, right? Oh man.
Same. I got I actually got my first dog that was mine.
Yeah.
Is Angus.
Mm-hmm. I remember when you got Angus.
He's my 11-year-old bulldog.
Yeah.
And because I didn't want to have a dog until I had a proper space for dogs.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, you need to buy the fat, lazy dog.
Yeah.
I'm like, I never have to walk Angus.
Yeah.
I try to.
He doesn't want to.
When we get down to he's so excited. He's like every other dog. He sees a leash and he's like, he doesn't have a tail, but his ass starts to move and whatever. And he's does a wiggle bum and put the leash on him, and he's so excited, and he bounds down the stairs. We get to the end of the driveway, and he stops.
All right, that was good. Let's go home.
And then he's like, no, and you can't get him to go either direction, unless you drag him.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. No, he's like, I'm done. Let's go back in the house.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right.
Yeah, I wish that was this dog. This dog would run. They say you're not supposed to run with dogs till they're 2 years old or something. Not sure why, but so every time I go there, I just walk her, right? So, but if I want to tire her out, right? So I took her for a 10-kilometer walk, and it's nothing. Didn't put a dent in it, right? Just still so excited, right? And just what do I do? So then I started doing little runs with her, but you can't tire this thing out. She just started going to daycare for the first little bit, right? Yeah. So she'll go to the daycare, and they say she plays for 8 hours straight without it. Just goes. And I haven't seen her after yet, but apparently just zonked out, right? I've never seen her that tired. This is probably the most tired I've seen her. And that's because I pulled her around for an hour through the deep snow. We're trying to bound through snow as tall as her, right? So she's pretty tired, but she's just full of energy. I don't know if it's the Bernese mountain dog. Maybe they're just used to climbing mountains all the time, but puppy, pretty much. And that's what I'm thinking of. This is a lot of work, but she's so good already and so fucking smart. It's almost too smart at times. But that's going to pay dividends once all that puppiness goes away and you just have that intelligence and that love and all the great things.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah,
dogs are inconsistent.
I
said, I've got a bulldog.
Yeah,
I've had, like I said, and he is perfect for me because I don't like to walk dogs. I don't want to walk you. But I did my research and I bought a dog that was, still going to be fairly active, but I don't have to take him outside for an hour a day or 2 hours a day to run him off because. And I'm not going to live on a farm, so you can't just put him outside, right? I want a dog that fits my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And but I also have a lab. Mm. The lab is fucking crazy.
Yeah, we had a lab growing up.
He's a chocolate lab, and supposedly the chocolate is worse than the black and the yellow too. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not.
Yeah, one of my best friends is a chocolate lab, and it was a wild dog.
He's 5 years old, and he still will not settle down.
Yeah.
You could take him for a 27-kilometer walk, and he'll be like,
Yeah. He's still pulling me at the end of the walk. That's it. Yeah.
That's just ridiculous.
But it's so worth it. Of all, like, even all those negative things and all the bad stuff, like, it's just so nice to have a dog to come home to. Like, it's all worth it, right? At the end of the day. Yeah. Oh, I love that little mutt. Love that little mutt.
And you go through a lot, right? Like, you don't realize. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I was thinking about Angus because I got Angus a week before the fire.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was, I think I picked him up on the Friday, and then the fire in Slave Lake was 10 days later on the Sunday, right? And it was, so we went through a lot together. It was it was just kind of cool, right? So you got that bond.
Did you lose your house in the fire? I can't remember. Yeah, you did. Hey, do you mind if I ask you about that time?
Oh yeah, no, this is all good. Like you said.
So you probably went through the same experience. If people have listened, I did an episode with Jamie Coots and kind of went through the whole story of the Slave Lake fire. If anybody wants to hear, we won't get into the whole story of it maybe, but you can hear it there. But so when did you find out that you lost your place? Because it was such uncertainty that whole, even the next morning.
I was pretty sure when I was sitting in the Walmart parking lot waiting for them to open up a road so I could get the fuck out. And just where the smoke was coming from and the stuff was going on, I was like pretty sure. And then on the news, one of the most common pictures was actually the sixplex across the road from me. Yeah. So when you saw that one going up, you're like 98% sure. Yeah. And then it was probably the next morning, or maybe even sometime the next day when you saw some pictures, and even, I don't know about you, but like you saw the pictures and you're like, where the hell is that? Yeah. Because there was no reference, right? There was there's nothing there. But because I lived on 13th, you could see, there was a picture where they were taking it from 88. Yeah. And you could see all the way through. And you could see the mailbox. So I knew where it was. Yeah. And then I could see that the whole street was gone. Right? Yeah.
So then was that like the moment? Is that when everything hit you, or because you were so sure you're kind of already in that point, or was that when it really hit? Like that
it hit pretty hard. Like it did and it didn't. But I mean, for me, it was like I was pretty sure when I was in the Walmart parking lot. I mean, the fact that because it wasn't supposed to come into town, right? Like,
did you have lots of stuff packed up? Were you able to get lots of stuff out?
Nothing.
Because
it was like, I mean, and I look back on it with some humor. Because I think that's the way you got to deal. It's the way we got to deal with stuff, right? Like I said, but I went that day because I'd only been in my house 6 months. Right. I bought my house in October that year and moved in, and this is in May, right? So whatever, 6-7 months. And I was getting out. It was beginning early May. I'm like, okay, gonna go out. The first time I've ever really seen the yard because I bought it in October and gonna get out, and it was cut. I cut the grass, I think, and it was really dry, so I'm like, shit, I should probably go get some hoses and, water the grass. So I actually had gone down to, I think, the Home Hardware and picked up some hoses. But on my way back, I was like, oh, I should pick up my marking because if I don't, some dumbass is fucking going to yell at me tomorrow because I don't have their test mark. Yeah. Nick. Sorry.
You know me, I always wanted my test marks.
I'm kidding, right? Whatever. But I stopped in the school and I think it was, there's a couple teachers there. I want to see Karen Carlton. Yeah. And they were supposed to be evacuating from Widewater and Mitsu. And one of the locations they were supposedly supposed to evacuate into was the high school. Nobody ever showed up. Right. But it's like, well, you're here. Can you help? Yeah. So we need to set this stuff up, and we got some stuff set up. So our tables, we got this, we got ready. Somebody ordered a bunch of pizza, and the pizza showed up, and it's like, so all of a sudden, what was supposed to be my afternoon turned into like, we're going to get ready. It's what you do, right? And so about 3:00, they go, no, nobody's going to come. You're good. And so that's about noon type thing when I went in. And like I said, about 3:00, they're like, okay, I think, and I think maybe Mrs. Carlton stuck around for a little bit
to make sure if anyone rolled by.
And whatever. And so I go home and I'm like, oh, whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, it starts to get dark. Hey? And my mom's on the phone, and my mom's like, oh, pack a bag. My mom and dad are, I don't know where she was. She's probably in Edmonton or Alberta Beach, or maybe they live on the island now. I can't tell you where they were at that time. Yeah. And you need to pack some stuff. I'm like, Mom, nothing's going to happen. Don't worry about it.
And everyone listening has to keep in mind that forest fires around Slave Lake were growing up as a kid. I remember they'd get so close to town, that the sky would be red and all that stuff. Like, this wasn't something new. And obviously you didn't grow up in Slave Lake, but for the community, this was so
but
this
I have
was
relatives
so
that grew up in
nonplussed.
Slave Lake,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
exactly.
It's like,
Everyone was used to this. It wasn't a big deal.
It wasn't like I was anything new, right? Like they're going to come close, but we're whatever. And so finally, my mom, and I think she phoned me like about 3 or 4 times in 2 days type things. And normally I talk to her about once a week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So I went downstairs. I had a big bag, big duffel, hockey bag almost, right? And she's like, you need to pack a bag. So I basically took all of the clothes that were on the laundry table because I'm sure everybody has it. Like, you probably have,
I know exactly what you're saying.
It's clean clothes, but I haven't sorted it.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And I shoved it into the bag, and he said, "Okay, I'm good." Took the bag upstairs and set it by that was on Saturday.
Yeah.
So and set it by wherever it was. Okay, Mom, I packed the bag.
Yeah.
She's on the phone. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
And but so after I get back from the school, we're actually out on the front lawn. So I'm like, this is weird. Like, so it was like eerily quiet and like weird stuff. Like,
power was going out, I think, at times.
I don't know that I lost power, but I think I tried to phone somebody and I couldn't get a phone. And, but I could text.
Yeah.
It was weird,
I remember
right?
that.
And so I walked out on my front lawn and my neighbor was also out on the front lawn and we're standing there, and that was about the time I think it probably jumped the fire a little bit closer to Highway 2. They were starting to, or at least, and the sparks started coming across the highway. And it was like, we're getting hit in the face with fucking embers.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then somebody came along and turned on, it's like it's raining. Somebody had come and opened the fire hydrant at the end of the block. So it was just shooting up in the air. It wasn't doing any good. One of those dumb things that somebody did and shouldn't have done type thing. So me and my neighbor look at each other and go, we better go in the house. It's getting kind of whatever. And then it's about 4 or 5 minutes later, and no front driveways, whatever, had back driveways.
Yeah.
And I walk out the back door, and my neighbor looks at me and goes, holy, it's about fucking time we get out. And this is an old guy, like you never heard. Like, it's just like whatever. It was priceless. And I've got Angus under one arm and a bag over my shoulder, and I'm going out the back door. Yeah. And then he's the same thing. It's like we just kind of decided it was time, right? Yeah. And it was like, and then we got out.
Yeah. And then you headed to Walmart to the.
Well, we couldn't get anywhere because Highway 88 was. They wouldn't let us go that way because I'm like literally half a block, like from the end of your garage door away from 88. Yeah. And I can't get that. They blocked off, so we end up going the other way. And you're moving slow, but everybody was letting people in. It was kind of cool, right? Like you're. And
the community was really pulling together. Yeah, you heard amazing stories of people getting stuck and everyone helping everybody out because the power went out, so people couldn't get out of the garage, and people were helping getting garage doors open for people.
People were like jumping into cars because they didn't realize that all garage doors have a release. But
yeah, exactly.
But like I said, and we get to downtown, and I'm like, geez, I got like a quarter tank of gas. I'm not like, and one of my cousins lives in Slave. Well, I've got 2 cousins and an aunt and uncle that live in Slave Lake as well, or did at that time, and one had gone towards Fawcett. The other one had actually gone towards High Prairie, and they had left a little bit earlier. They had kids, that kind of stuff. But they were a little bit more aware of probably what was going on than I was. And the guy going to High Prairie, I don't know how far they got, and they got turned around.
Yeah, because there's fires over that way too.
There's fires down there, right? So they got turned around. So I'm like, well, I can't go that way. And my other cousin had gone the other way, and they were stopped on the highway. Yeah. So they weren't turning them around and telling them to go home yet, but like we're not letting you through here yet. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't go. I got a quarter tank of gas. There's no way that I'm going to drive up and down the highway, right? So, and I thought I was going to get gas at the Shell. Yeah. And pull in. The power went out. It was like almost as I was there, right?
Because that was the same thing that happened with us at Max there, but Ingalls got Nipissey Electric, so they brought generators down, got generators running, got the bulk station back. So we had cars
for miles,
miles, right? Line because it was the only place in town you get gas, and everyone was trying to get the.
Well, I made it to Calling Lake.
Yeah.
There's like some random gas station on the side of the road. Yeah, and I went. That's where I made it to before I got gas, but.
But you probably had to sit at Walmart for a couple hours because I
was probably a few hours, and then my aunt and uncle, my cousins they started the highway moving, and they let them know, and my aunt and uncle had started out a little bit ahead because of whatever. So the cousins actually got through. They got to go straight through, so they went through Fawcett, Westlock. By the time I was going, there was another fire had come through there.
So you had to go.
We had to go through Athabasca.
Yeah, that's where we had to go too. Yeah,
and it was a surreal. Driving that highway because it was wall-to-wall traffic. Yeah. And I'm not the most patient person I've ever met. Yeah. They're all traveling at like 70 kilometers an hour. And I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And there's nobody coming at you because who's coming to Slave Lake?
Yeah,
everybody knew what was going on. And you'd get out and pass 30, 40 vehicles at a time.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think, like I said, I made it to Calling Lake, and that's, I managed to get gas.
Yeah.
And I had Angus in the car, which was great because I got to the Walmart parking lot, didn't have a leash for him.
Yeah.
Can't let him go. He's a puppy. Still doesn't even really know anything, right? No. First thing he does, like, I don't know, I would be willing to bet you I was at like maybe the cemetery road when they finally let me out.
Yeah.
Shit's in the car.
In your nice car too, hey?
That was it was a decent car at that time. Yeah, like I said,
it was the coolest car that any of the teachers at school had. We'll say that.
I don't know,
right?
maybe.
Yeah.
It was fun to drive.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was like, seriously, buddy,
come on.
Like, come on. So I get to smell that for 2.5 hours, right? Because it was great. And then I got to Calling Lake.
Yeah.
I think it took me about 5.5 hours to get to Stony Plain.
Yeah, because I think by the time, I don't know how many hours it took, but so we were on the other side. We couldn't get to Walmart, right? We were kind of where we live over by the point there. They brought us to the airport and everyone was out on the tarmac. That was kind of on that side of town, right? And they kept telling everybody, we were kind of, when they said, you can't get out, just wait here because the roads are all closed. You can't get out. How are we going to know when they do open up the road? They said, just listen to the radio. The radio will talk.
And then the radio goes out.
And then the radio goes out because it burnt down, right? And then everyone's like, well, what the fuck? Like, what are we going to do?
Oh, it was a perfect storm, right? Like there's so many things that like, I mean, the radio was upgrading their backup or whatever, burnt down. The water plant was midway through a renovation. And there was a couple of idiots who thought it would be a great idea to drive over hydrants, which really didn't help too. That one doesn't get advertised very often. How many people are aware that happened? I don't think, but like you said,
I think that's the first time I even heard that. I don't even know if I'd ever heard that. Really? I wonder what, like,
I don't know that. I'm not saying there were fire guys or like whatever, but like people wanted water, right? Like you said, like you said, I remember it wasn't, I can't remember who it was. Like I said, I was after the fire because at that point in time, like I said, I was kind of one of those guys where it was like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I really didn't lose anything except for a house. I don't have kids. I didn't have a family with me. So, I lost one or two little things, mementos that I would have liked to have held on to. Yeah. But I don't really lose anything of any huge value like some other people did.
Yeah. Especially when you look around town, you see these people that, just lost so many things that are so meaningful, right? Like it really, it was forced perspective almost, right? Like,
like you said, so for me, it was like the best way to deal with it was humor.
Yeah.
And because I do remember a little bit later that year, like, so this was May, was it the end of June, early July, when we got all the rain. Yeah. And we got flooding.
Yeah.
So my cousin's basement flooded. They didn't lose their, they didn't lose their house, but their basement flooded. And my first instinct was, always have to outdo me.
Yeah, no shit. Hey, like, can I just let me have one?
I burned my house down and when they burnt the house down, like, so you still had the cement foundation. Yeah. And what happens with the weather and with whatever, the foundation fills full of water, right? Yeah. So my first thought was with my cousin, it's like, sure, your house, because his house didn't burn down. Yeah. I'm like, I put in an outdoor pool. You put in an indoor pool.
Yeah, come on.
Come on. Yeah. Why is it always a one-upmanship game? Yeah. Like, just come on, right? Yeah. Like you said. And I said that to a couple people and got, sometimes I got humor out of it, but I got a few people get really
give you the stare, right? Yeah,
right. Like I said, but it is what it is.
But humor's how you deal with that, and that's. I was just had a conversation with Ashley Stevenson. I don't know if you know her. She was a couple years older.
I know. I don't know her. I looked at the picture. I did know Doug
for sure, right? Yeah. Doug's wife and the story she was telling.
Not well, but I know her.
Right, exactly, right. It's Slave Lake. It's you know somebody or you know somebody
taught
that knows somebody
in
for
like
sure.
Grade whatever, because he's a little bit older than you guys.
Yeah, and she was talking about like with what she went through with cancer, of that same thing of how she dealt with it with humor, but how hit and miss it was with other people, of how, like, she said, like, this is me. I can say whatever I want, but just the reaction she would get sometimes is like, you still kind of got to be careful who you're saying to, right? Like, you don't have to. I mean, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
But it would be weird when you're making comments like that. Like you said, like, it is what it is. And you're making comments and you're laughing about it with some guys. Like, and they're like, how somebody comes up to you and goes, well, how can you say that? My sister's house burned down. And you look at me and go, yeah, so did my fucking house. Like, get over it. And then they're like, well, it's not right. It's like, it's my way of dealing with stuff, and if you don't like it, that's fine. Like, do what you got to do.
You're fully entitled to be to feel a way about it, but this is how I'm dealing with it. And you want to take, like, what does that help to take away other people's ways of dealing with it, right? It's you clearly show that you understand that that's a traumatic experience to lose a house, and this is how I'm dealing with that trauma. Do you want to take that away from me?
I think there was a lot more than just a house. Like,
sorry, that's
because I mean, when you look at, like, even yourself, Courtney, you would have been
age.
16?
16, yeah.
Courtney,
yeah, I just turned 16.
Courtney wouldn't have been home. Probably may or may not even been living at home at that time.
She was, and that was at the time with her her autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
Her back was really bad, so she could barely get around, walk, right? So, and my parents were both out of town, so me and her were both trying to load up, get everything out of the house and stuff, just kind of trying to, when you're kids, you don't really know. And I think Ingo was like, it's fine, don't pack shit out, whatever, but we were kind of no, we got to get things packed. So we had a little motor home, we're packing everything in there, but I could see her, she was limping so hard. I was like, okay, just sit down, like I'll load it up. And she was in some rough shape at that time, but yeah.
Well, but like I said, I mean, even that, it's a traumatic experience.
It was, for sure.
To everybody, right?
Still
like you said,
to this day when I smell
whether you lost your house or not, whether you lost, it's still traumatic, right? I really do think about when we finally got back, and I think about some of the kids, and some of them lost everything. Some of them kind of maybe didn't have much to begin with, whatever, right? And it was like we didn't really go back to school, right?
Unless your parents forced you to go get your bio mark up.
Or you had a fantastic Math 20 group of kids that all showed up or half of 3/4 of them showed up to finish the course anyways. That was you guys.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't have to, but kids were coming in to check out their lockers.
Right.
And just to see, I think of one guy you probably played hockey with in particular that came through and they had lost their house. And he found his Thunder hockey jacket. And it's like just instant emotion.
Yeah,
right?
it's tough. Yeah, and that's insane. Like just I remember a couple weeks. It was when everyone was at West Edmonton Mall for those couple weeks, and I've told this story before on this podcast. But Travis Malbuff, right? Like just a tough, just you never see Travis cry. You never see, he was a very,
I didn't really get to know the Malbuff boys that well
because
none of them took high school, man.
Right, exactly. But just a great kid. But it was always one of the tougher ones, right? In that sense, he's an emotional guy too. But he just never really. He was very much. You had to know him really well to ever see it. And I remember him breaking down at the bowling alley in West Ed and just to see that and how traumatic that was to me to see, one of my strongest friends and throughout this, he was putting on such a strong face for this and using humor a lot and stuff, but just to talk about it. And me and him just sat there and just, had a little cry and talked, and he just said, and he's saying it's just the stupid little things. I want my PlayStation. I want my this. And just to know that it's just not there and just to hear something like that. And someone you care about, like one of my best friends to see, and there's nothing you can do that you can't help. There's nothing you can say. And and you're 16, you don't really have the tools in your toolkit to really respond to that. Right. There's a lot to it
but there's trauma still.
For
right?
sure.
Like you said, the smell. And I still get that.
Yeah.
The smell isn't not really a huge trigger for me.
Oh, really? That one's probably the biggest one for me when I smell. And
for me, it's when I see something on TV when Australia's burning.
Yeah.
Or Vegas is burning. Or California is burning. Or Fort Mac.
Yeah. It's tough to watch, For sure. For sure. And it's probably different for me, it's a smell. For you, it's that and it's so unique to what you went through in that time that there's going to be so many things. And for such a traumatic, one of the interesting things to me was when I sat down with Jamie Coots to tell the story of how much of it you almost, I don't know if we're repressing or if it's just a couple of years goes by, but just when you talk about it, how much of that comes back of that conversation, that whole conversation. I don't know how many, maybe it was 2 hours where we were talking. My hair on my arms did not sit down. They were on end the whole time. Just that it takes you back and that was really highlighting because I think being such a young age, you're so resilient, you're so flexible that it was super traumatic, but at 16, life moves so fast. There's so many things to kind of take it up.
It depends on where you are and who you are too.
For sure.
Like you said, I know talking to one parent shortly after that, and we were just kind of talking about our experiences and getting out and whatever. And she says, I lost my mind because we're, 20 minutes out of Slave Lake evacuating. Mm-hmm. And one of her kids looks up at her and goes, "Mommy, are we going to die?"
Yeah. Holy fuck, eh? And what in life is going to prepare you to ever hear that, right? And or even to think that would ever be a possibility. So when you hear something like that, the way it just shreds you to the core, right?
It still does, right?
100% it does. And there's so many of those things, and that's the biggest thing. Everyone got to see the big story, right? The overarching of what kind of happened with the fire and all that, and what you miss is the little stories in between, and that's where the real impact is, and that's what it is, and that's why I love being able to talk on here and have people and having like Travis Malv, have him on and tell from his point of view, or have all the other people, because that's where the real impact is in the individual stories, because there's things like that where you hear that just breaks your heart, right? Or I remember when we first got out and we got on the highway and just I can't, just maybe 20 minutes out of town. There's kind of a cutoff, and you can kind of climb up a hill and kind of sit there. And we just got off, and we met up with the Millers, Clinton and Cody and them, and they had their holiday trailer behind. And when we got out, I think they were actually with us at the airport there maybe or something, but we got out together, but we couldn't, when you're at the airport there, you can't really see what's going on in town. So the only real glimpse we got was we went around town, and then when you're coming down the highway, you come by Walmart, and then you get just to see everything burning, and right where Clinton lives, right? That's
right in there somewhere.
Right in there. And like from what we saw, when I went by, that was the first thing I thought, because Clinton was my best friend. Like when I went by, there was, oh my God, Clinton's house is gone. Like, there's no way.
And they didn't actually lose their
house. They
didn't,
didn't, which is amazing. But in that moment, I was so sure, right? Yeah. Of like, and that's, so that whole 20-minute drive from the time we pulled off from the time we just passed there, that was the biggest thing of like, that was the thing on the forefront of my head. Also, you're feeling like, holy fuck, our whole town is on fire. Like, what the fuck's going to do? Is the whole thing going to, you don't know that, but the thing that was actively at the front of my mind was, holy fuck, like Clinton. And then to stop there, and we just got out of the vehicle, didn't say nothing, and just, Clinton walked up and fucking gave him a big hug, and we just cried, right? And it's just like, oh, and didn't say nothing, but I knew that he just drove by the same thing that I did, and he just saw that same thing, and I know what's going through his mind, right? And him and Cody and that, and like but those are the little things that you don't get to hear, right? Like all these people that didn't go through that, like on the news, you don't hear those little stories, right? But that's where all the impact is. That's where the real stuff is, and it's kind of a, I don't know. It's almost sad to think that those things don't get documented. That the things that really matter throughout that won't live on.
I never read the book. Did you read the book?
I don't think I read the book either.
I have a copy of it.
Yeah, I think I do too. Actually, now that you mentioned, but I don't think I ever read it. Yeah, it's on a coffee table book.
It was Mr. Ramsey and Mrs. Ramsey and a couple other people that put it all together.
Yeah, and there's lots of pictures. I feel like
and lots of stories, because I know they did ask.
And maybe that's an amazing way to live on. And like you say, there's a couple. Travis has there's some stories that came on with this podcast. It's going to live on in there. And there's always these little.
Well, you're
little
assuming
areas.
that your podcast is going to do well, but
sure. Yeah, I got. I was always unduly confident in certain ways, right? Yeah.
So
that's nothing new, but it's but it shows the importance of it, and kind of where I was going with that of when I had that conversation with Jamie. Of what that highlighted to me was how traumatic that was. I don't think just being so young, I don't think I could truly understand how traumatic that was. And then when you look back, I was like, oh man, you almost couldn't really fully understand it until you look back on it. But it was so painful. Why would I? I'm not going to choose to look back. I think it's probably the same reason I didn't read the book, because I don't want to choose to relive this, right? Like if it's for something like that.
But I think in some cases, it's good for us to relive something.
It was amazing, and that's where I wanted. That's kind of where I was going with that. It felt so good, and it reminded me of so many things. I texted so many people to talk about it. It was a really good experience, and then releasing it, and I had a bunch of people text me of, hey, that really kind of not the same way as having the conversation yourself, but when you listen to a podcast, especially if you're on your own or you're driving somewhere, it's just you. It feels like you're part of that conversation. You almost get not the same catharsis, but a piece of it, right? And so many people reach out, and that meant a lot to me that they got a little piece of that too, right? And it's just the little things that go on that you wouldn't think about too much if you weren't right in front of it, right? Yeah.
It was because the other best story, I think, and I can't remember who it was, and it wasn't somebody I knew, was the car. Did you hear that one?
I don't know.
I don't know if it was a Beamer or a Benz or whatever. Same issue. So in the South, and couldn't get his car out of his garage because he didn't have any like actual mechanical skills and didn't understand it. You just pull the string and the door will open.
Right. Or he didn't want to stand on his nice car to hit the release.
Whatever it was.
Whatever, right?
Yeah, like,
just being facetious.
And then no, I know it is what it is, right? Like you said, but they got to about faucet and the phone starts ringing. It's OnStar or whatever they're. Yeah, we just phoned in to check with you, Mr. I can't remember. I just said, your car's been sending us a distress signal.
Oh, no shit.
Right? Because one of the high-end cars, right? There's something going wrong. It's sending a distress signal. And are you all right? And he's like, that was when he learned that his house burnt down.
Yeah. Wow. And that's why I asked you kind of how you learned, because so many people I've talked to all found out in a different way, right? Like so many people. And I remember watching when everybody got through the Athabasca, a lot of us went back to Westlock, and a bunch of us stayed in Westlock because that was, they had hotels set up. And
my family, like, so for me, I came I didn't want to go see to my mom and dad, so I went to my sisters. Yeah,
right. But and I remember getting there, and everyone's kind of in the lobby, right? And they have a TV in the lobby playing the news, and that was the first time that people got to see the first footage coming through, and you could see people. Like I remember, I shouldn't say this because I'm not sure it is, but maybe that was when the Keaveneys, who's a family we're very close to, right? Like and have a lot of love for. I think that was when maybe they found out, or maybe I'm confusing that with somebody else. But there was a couple family, and you could almost watch in real time them have the realization of what they lost. Like that was fun. Like again, like just there's so much going on that you forget almost these traumatic experiences that were within that big picture, because you just, when you look back on it, there's trauma there, but you don't realize all the little pieces of it, right? Like and some people they saw on footage and you hear the amazing stories of someone like Clinton that thought there's no fucking way. And that was the weirdness of it, right?
I know there was one of our teachers that lived in the north side.
Yeah.
So there was very, very little damage in the north side, but the old zoo went, which then created some stuff, right? And I know she had actually had somebody that was on the fire department or had hauled water, was in town for whatever reason, and had told her that her house burned down.
Yeah.
But they didn't know where she lived. Like they weren't 100%. It was the other side of the house. The other side of the road was gone.
Yeah.
And the next block over was gone.
Yeah.
Her house was still standing.
Yeah. And and some of the weirdest ones, I think right by the high school, even there was, I think it was even, I don't know, like the front doors of the high school, whatever road that is that kind of goes and curls around there. There was a couple houses where it'd be like burnt house, not burnt house, like, which is like, how does that even, and like all the siding's melted off and it's not in good shape, clearly, because there's houses burning all around it, but just the randomness of it. But you see.
Well, it depends on where you were at though. Yeah. Like I said, my block was gone.
Oh yeah.
But
for sure.
The 2 fourplexes behind me and one house survived.
Really?
Right. Yeah. So like, there was like, as I was on 13, I always like to say I was in one of the shittiest houses on one of the best streets in town. Right. Yeah. Really, like you said. And, cause it was, most of the rest of that street was very, pretty very large, big, nice homes. Right. But like I said, it's funny. So probably, and then right across the back alley, there's 2 fourplexes in there and both of them were fine. And there was one house next door. Yeah. And then I think the next one burnt down and then the next one survived and then everything was gone. Yeah. Right.
And that's where you hear the stories of kind of like the Clinton Mill where they thought it was gone and it was. And then you hear these people that they think it's good and then they find out after, or where they get told your house is gone and you go through all those experiences and then you find out it's not, or you get told the opposite. Hey, your house made it. And then you find out, we fucked up. Sorry, it didn't. And that story was,
and like I said, but there was but the other side of that too, is I think you started to see divisions later. So right after the fire, it was great. Everybody helped everybody. Everybody was fantastic. You know, if you had stuff, you lent stuff. If you didn't have stuff, you took stuff, whatever it is. And, it's all good, man. And then, it was like, you started to see a little bit later and there's people that were upset they didn't lose their homes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's like, well, yeah, but you got a beautiful new house. It's like, yeah, but I fucking lost everything.
Yeah.
And I lived in you should see what I lived in for the last year, you know, and I was one of the lucky ones in that respect. Like I was out a year and 3 days. So it was probably one of the first ones in reality, right? Like I was out, I believe it was May. Yeah. It was May 18th. Yeah. So May long weekend that I moved into my new home. Wow. Right.
And that's exactly what it was in the actual moments of it. It was amazing to see all the community coming together and all the positivity. And then the further out you got from that, the more you start to see that of, created, because people have to understand that there's I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of houses that need to be rebuilt. There's only so many contractors. So that creates a dynamic where some people are going to have to wait. There's a ripe environment for shysters to come in and fuck people over. There's so much pain going on. There's so much people that have so many questions why, that they just want to blame something. Like it was a firestorm for division and for hurt, and for more hurt people to hurt people, really. Like that's what it was. And you definitely saw that. And it was kind of tough to watch. And I think the nice part of it was when you saw it, everyone understood what we went through. So you almost gave a little bit of leeway. Like, you're kind of being a shithead right now saying some things, but I get it. Yeah. We all went through some shit and we're going to give you a little bit of a pass kind of thing, right?
Yeah. But it was, like I said, it was weird to see it.
It was weird,
right? Yeah. You know, and to realize that people that were happy for you 6 months ago, or were upset because of you for 6 months, and their position has totally changed because they looked at, like, I know there was people that looked at those of us that lost our homes a year later as lucky.
Yeah. Which is
like crazy.
So fucked
right?
up.
Like I said, I would have been like, did I get a new home? And did I get a nice home? Absolutely. Out of the deal. In the grand scheme of things, I probably financially came out ahead.
Yeah.
But
you give like,
but I would have I still right now take it all back and give me the house that I bought, and I have a place to live for a year and be the guy that could help.
Yeah.
As opposed to the guy that needed help.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And I think if you took like just to say, you know, if you have 100 people that went through, or 100 families that went through that, and you quiz them all after the fact with some years removed of exactly that choice, I would say there's maybe one or two out of the total whatever that maybe thought that way, right? Like I know somebody that had just bought a house. It was their first house. They hadn't really moved anything into it, and it was kind of fixed up, and they had a place to stay with family. Like they just moved out, so they had a place to stay, and it actually worked out. But that is so rare, and maybe that's the one story they hear, and then they paint everyone with that brush or whatever that is. But that is so rare. Like even that you do get a great house and all that, like the Malbus, like the house that they built was awesome, and that garage that they built, like we always partied in the Malbus garage. That was where everybody went, but they built it it was a kind of a party space after. But even then, you ask Travis, you ask Clarence, you ask Claire, none of them in a heartbeat, I promise you, none of them would go through all that heartache that they had to get that, right? No. Like that is so, like that still is hard for me to compute that people would think that way, right? Like,
well, like I said, and there were, like I said, it's the other side of it too, right? Like it's not like, I mean, people were upset that they didn't lose their houses. It's like
you don't even realize what that statement means. Like there's no way you could understand what that statement is.
Yeah. But it was weird, like you said. And I mean, it wasn't, you're right. It wasn't a large percentage of people.
Right.
It was a very small percentage of people. And, like I said, I was lucky enough to have a lot of help, and I'm sure everybody else did too. Right. And once you figured out where you landed on that spectrum, you got help when you could, and you gave help when you could.
Right.
And it was the community really did come together.
It did. Yeah.
And Alberta came together
for sure.
Canada came together.
Yeah.
We didn't see that as much, in my opinion. And maybe it was because I wasn't as involved. I didn't see that as much with the Fort Mac. I thought the same thing, because even when there was, I think Slave Lake really came together at the Fort Mac Prairie.
Yeah.
Because I think it brought
for sure. And we were so willing.
But I don't remember the deal, like the other stuff. And maybe it was just because I wasn't
the first time it happened, right? And or whatever.
Or you just weren't aware of it because you weren't part of it.
Exactly. Right. But I remember being amazed at, like you say, the response from outside of the community, like, in Westlock, they just had donations things set up for people to get things that they lost, right, or to start back. But there was ones in Westlock that were so huge and had so much stuff donated that was like, you could furnish like 100 house wills up, and then you go to Empton and there's one there, and there's all over Alberta they had the community, like they probably donated like 10 Slave Lakes worth of stuff. Like I'm sure it all didn't end up going to those people.
A lot of it ended up in the landfill.
Exactly, but which is terrible. Shitty, but it
also depends too, right? Like I mean, you really, like, some people donate some stuff, and I'm pretty sure you gotta be careful, right? Like when you say what people donate. I've been on some other stuff too, right? And some people, it's like they really don't have much, so they donate what they have.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Uh-huh.
But in the grand scheme of things,
do you want a 20-year-old kettle?
Right? Like, right?
No, and I saw that too, and that was the other thing I saw. It was at the same time, like it was the.
I was thinking more of a dirty T-shirt.
Yeah, but, that too.
Like some of the are armless dolls. Like there was some of the stuff that gets donated. I mean, you hope that the thought behind it was pure, was genuine,
just, and
not just like, let's get rid of my cat. Right.
Yeah.
But that's what happened in a lot of that stuff too, right?
Yeah.
And that caused a big divide with some people too, because you get some of the stuff that was, because they set up the building that's Toco, I believe, as a deposit.
Oh yeah.
And then they hauled into the skating rink or the curling rink and gave stuff out of the curling rink. But I mean, there's talk about some of the stuff that came through that never made it there.
Yeah. Oh, never made it, hey?
Right? Or you get somebody, because they didn't really monitor who took stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody would come in and like somebody donated 25 beds, and one guy comes in and takes them all. Well, what need does anybody have?
Yeah. Are you running an orphanage or?
Right? Like,
And we saw that too at the one in Westlock or wherever it was. The first night that I saw, I don't even know why we were there. Right? We didn't need nothing, but.
I felt bad.
You could see people walking around that you definitely had those questions of, certainly you could just see them just, fill in there. And it's like, are you even from Slave Lake? Like, I don't know.
I remember going to the curling rink in Slave Lake when we got back, and I was looking for, stuff for temporary housing, and I felt bad, and I think I walked out with like 3 spoons and a fork.
Yeah.
And literally that was what, and I still feel bad walking out of there, because I didn't need any, like,
Right.
I could use stuff, but I didn't need anything.
Right. And that's tough too. And I'm curious to ask you about, like, I'm just trying. It's so hard to put yourself in that scenario. If we did lose, right? Like, but I imagine it would be hard to deal with, like, it's so nice when people are trying to help, but also at some point, sometimes it just, it feels like you're people are pitying you, and that's not a good feeling. Did you struggle with any of that?
I never really got any of the pity stuff so much.
No.
But I don't really pay attention.
Fair enough. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've gotten to the point where I don't really take offense at a lot in my life. You know,
It's one of your best. That's one of your best qualities.
well, no, but I mean, realistically, like, you think about back in high school, if you'd have seen me, maybe the first year I taught you, I definitely got a little bit more excited about stuff. Yeah. But by the time I got into teaching high school, like I said, your mentality just changed. Takes a lot to take offense.
Yeah.
And you just kind of let people talk, and
Exactly.
when you finish listening, then you walk away. And if it was useful, great.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't,
wipe your hands.
she's gone. Sorry. Yeah, I guess.
No video. I'm working on getting a video component, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I can get the Zoom ones up. I've bought all the equipment now. I just got to try it the first time. I remember one time, must have been grade 12 because it was diploma exams. I was really worried about my math diploma, and I think you knew it, because I was worried about, or maybe I wasn't confident once I wrote the test. I wasn't confident, and you knew that. And I don't know if I can say this, might be breaking some rules. You told me a little early than when people were supposed, because I was bugging you a bunch. And you just you said, I can't show you, but you told me what my mark was. And I think it was, you said 79. I said 79, like, that's my mark, like, that's my total mark. And what it was what you were telling me is, no, you got 79 in the diploma, which was great with my marks. That was going to put me in a decent spot. But what I thought you were saying was, your total grade now is 79 with the test. So I thought I got like a 60 or something. That brought it down to that point. And for like 2 days until I got the actual test, I was so miserable that I just fucked up everything. And then I got the test. And I was like, what the fuck, Fisk? Like,
I remember that.
It was probably more impactful for me.
Because we realistically, as teachers, don't know what those marks are, right?
Right.
But I know there was a few years where it ended up in our in the mark program, before it should have.
And I think that's what you told me.
And it wasn't so much that it was before it should have. You should have had it in the mail.
Exactly.
But for some reason it got slowed down.
Because it was only a day or two separation between the two. Like, they were on their way, or maybe some people are, maybe it was because my name's so low. Maybe the people were already starting to get theirs or whatever.
You're the guy that delivers the mail to your post office box didn't work yesterday.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
But
But I don't remember telling you that. But,
I remember those 2 days. I was so disappointed then. But also, on the other side of it, when I realized that it wasn't, or maybe, I think it wasn't even that. I don't even think it was that time. I think we cleared it up before. I was like, because I was drilled down about it. And I think, this is what happened. You said, like, why are you so upset about it? Like we've touched, I know what kind of grade you wanted. Like, we talked about this. Like, why are you so upset? And I was like, well, fuck, 79. Like, I kind of pulls my other, like, I need 80 average, like, for what I want to do. And he said, you'll be fine. Like, your average is still up there. Like, you got a 70. Like, and I was like, what? No, that's not that. And then we figured it out in that moment. I was like, oh, right. So it wasn't even the couple days. I think it was maybe a couple hours that I was sitting there. But
I don't remember.
And I wasn't even that, and looking back, I wasn't even that concerned. I was like, holy fuck, my parents are going to kill me. Like, that's what I was thinking. I didn't give a fuck, like, because the whole thing, like, I was already kind of recognized that this is not the be all end all. There's going to be a lot more things, but I just got to get through this without getting in too much trouble, right? Because you already have a high bar with Courtney going through and acing all these tests.
You had some pretty big competition,
Yeah. And then, well, that was nice. I think going into university too was nice to have her there, just busting ass, getting all those grades, and then I could just kind of come in and just, as long as I don't fail anything, I'm good, right? Like, it doesn't matter what grades I get here, as long as I don't fail a class. And all 4 years didn't fail.
So you learned out when the withdrawal date was, and you made sure you withdrew.
I didn't withdraw from one class. There was a couple, and that was the thing, but I was always on that because I knew I didn't want to fail. So, like, I always just thought, I'll figure it out, right? Even, there's probably somewhere I should have withdrawn, but I'm going to figure it out. And I would, right? And I think I always, this, I worked best with the deadline, right? When people would oh, puppy, you just want some love, hey? Oh, how about this? I'll get you a treat after. Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
You just want to jump right up there into his lap, eh?
Me.
Don't bite him. What a cutie. Oh, she loves you. Oh, man.
Go see your dad.
Yeah, come see me. Come see me. She said, I don't want to see you. Here, I'll get her I'll get her dog's ear. Well, actually, I'll ask you a question, then I'll go for dog's. Get her the pig's ear, and she'll chew on that for a bit. One one of the traits that, this might sound funny to say, but one of the biggest things that I see in myself and I appreciate in you, I think a lot, is disagreeableness, and how much power that there is in that. And I wonder just how much you see that in yourself and how much has that hindered you and helped you, because disagreeableness is something that can really help you in life and it can really hinder you at times. And I'm wondering where that balance falls for you.
Are you calling me grumpy?
No, not at all.
What are you trying to say?
No, because I think that's one of my biggest traits is disagreeableness too. And I think when you really understand what it is and kind of the social sciences sense of what that word means, it's just, not taking answers. You want some reasoning for the answer. You don't want to take things at their face value. If it doesn't sound right to you, you're going to say something. You're not just going to go along with it. And that's something that I find I always struggle with, finding that balance. Hey, off. And I find for myself that I struggle to find the balance with that. And that's something that I feel like I really not bonded with you over that, but
I know what you mean.
Could recognize that. I would just, you're a little further along the path than I am, but I see a lot of similarities. I wonder how you see it, with a couple of more years of experience under your belt, how you see that trait and how it affects you.
That's just who I am, right? I always called it miserable. Really, it's like, but there's just not a lot of sense in, like, I'm not going to do stuff that doesn't make sense to me, right?
Right.
I learned probably the big one for me, and you're probably going through some of this right now too, right? Is I learned probably in my early 20s that it really doesn't matter how much money I make if I'm not happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a really hard lesson for me to learn, and I won't tell you how I learned it. But it was like, it's not worth it. It doesn't matter. Like, I mean, and that was pretty much like what happened to me when it was time to leave Slave Lake. Is like, I need to be happy, and it's not possible for me to do that here now.
Right. And that's one of those things where learning that lesson, it's such a painful lesson to learn, but it's so important for the grand scheme of things. And you see it in so many people that they learn. Not everybody learns a lesson. A good majority of people learn that lesson, but it's very different times in different people's lives. Some people come out of the womb kind of already knowing that, right? Yeah. Just sometimes it's inherent to people. Some people work till they're 60 and they have that realization. Well, like I said,
I mean, different situation too, right? I didn't have kids, didn't have people reliant on me. And like I said, for me, it was like, if I don't do this now, I'll be too old.
Yeah.
Right. Because at 50,
that sounds very familiar.
Into my 50s, I'm not like, but I'm 20 years older than you are.
Yeah.
30 years older than you. 20 years older. Yeah. 20 years older than you.
We'll call it 15.
20. So almost probably pretty close. You're what? 27, 28?
Yeah. Turn 28 tomorrow? No, sometime this week.
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
And I'll be 48 in the spring.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's at 50, 55, I'm not starting a new career.
Right.
Right? Like, it's not realistic. And then I don't want to be that absolutely miserable teacher at the end of the hallway. And I'm sure you knew one or two of those.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, you knew the only reason they were there was because they couldn't be anywhere else.
Exactly.
Right? And it's not worth it to me.
And it's funny how much as a student you pick up on that. Yeah. Right? Like, that is so very apparent. Like, for all you can say about humans.
I can't say that I necessarily can pick up on it and point out a teacher but
for sure, right?
I could have when I was in high school.
100%. Right. And I think I think that's a very good point. I think that is very much a factor of the position you're in, and when you see it, and especially being in that classroom, of the telltale signs of that only come out when you're in that classroom, right? In the fact that maybe it's a different person, right? I'm sure it's a different person, right? You put on a different.
And I think sometimes you don't realize either is a lot of times it's the other way around.
Where they're put on a happy face, try and show in the classroom. But when
I would have never left teaching, right? If I didn't have to deal with adults.
I was going to say, what about parents? I was going to caveat that with that because I'm sure.
Yeah, adults.
Yeah, adults. Yeah. That's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's a huge realization too, to recognize that and to know. I think that helps you move forward with the you can almost keep that chapter, it keeps it in that positive frame of like the actual the teaching work that you did. Like you have a lot of love for that still, right? Like that doesn't tarnish all of that, right? And I think that's a lot better way. Like and same way with me stepping into this role, going away from work, like I look back on all the amazing things we did and the crazy things we accomplished, and like looking back, like just some wild shit we did. I'm excited to talk. It sucks. That was one of the biggest things I think that was tearing me apart, was we're doing all these amazing things and really,
like, and specifically, I was very proud of the things that I was doing but I couldn't talk about them because just the realities of business, you can't really talk about it. Also, it's, it's a big it's underneath of a big corporation. So there's some realities you can't, and that was tough for me of having this thing that I love so much. And I want to, and
you could talk to your dad, but nobody else. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what it was. And I think even my mom would struggle with that sometimes if we'd be really commiserating over it and she'd want to be a part of it. And it's like, it would take us, we'd have to stop for an hour to explain to you just to be able to get you into this conversation, and that's reality. But there's so little people in the world you can talk to about, right? Like my dad.
That you're allowed to.
Yeah. And that you're allowed to, right? And you find those people, right? Like, the guy that does the same thing, Jason Hancock, he runs the, Petrocan outfit in Lloydminster and Estevan, kind of southern, Saskatchewan. That's kind of his area, and very much the same way. And we're our families are very close. He's like my uncle, right? But same with him, like me and him, we'll sit in, like, a couple of times we've done this where, hop in the hot tub one night out in BC or at his place in Lloydminster and just start talking business and with a case of beer, and we're up till 6 a.m, just, going back, because it's so nice to be able to get it all and to talk about it and to bitch a little bit too, and to say, if we could only, have the freedom to do this, we could do all that. And it's so nice, but it's so rare, right? That's very infrequent.
I think it's probably not that rare, but it's very job specific, right?
Sorry, no.
Like it's no different than, like you said, you sit in a room full of teachers. They're all going to talk about teachers, and you feel sorry for the spouse that's not a teacher. Right?
Yeah.
No different than, like, I used to go to the odd, get together that was almost all oil field guys.
Yeah.
And it's like they start talking, and I have no idea what you're talking about. And we went out to 7 to 9 and did this at 13 to 22, and it's over by 7 to 6, and we went west of the use. And what the fuck?
Yeah.
But they're like, so you just kind of go,
Yeah. Sorry, what I meant, like, I think that for sure that is very common. I meant it's rare the opportunities to talk about it and to have that, because there's only guys like my dad, like Jason, like there's so few people. And when I'm with my dad or Jason, I don't really want to talk either. Like, sometimes it is nice every once in a while, but on the whole, right, especially if other people are around, you don't really want to get into it half the time. And it's hard not to. Like, even
it's hard to not talk.
You go to a hockey game and you're trying to enjoy an Oilers game, and you find yourself just slipping into it, and you're bitching and you're talking work stuff, and you're shit, like, what are we doing here? Let's just. But I think that's because there's so little opportunity. You have so little opportunities to really have those conversations, that when you do have that, it's hard not to slip into it, right? Like,
people like to talk about what they know about.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's part of it too. Like you said, you go out, and do you have those friends now where you get together and just talk about hockey?
Yeah.
Maybe, but only if they're also interested in hockey, right? Like it's common interest, right?
For sure.
Said, and like I said, I look at it, I know as teachers, it's funny because you walk into a room full of teachers and, oh my God, like there's no way you're not talking about school.
Yeah.
Right. Like, realtors are actually worse.
Oh yeah.
But
right.
Yeah. Like it's like,
so, and that's what I love about this podcast and just podcasts in general is one of my favorite, like, obviously everyone loves talking about what they like to talk about, right? And what I like to talk about is passion, right? So like that opens me up to so many lenses. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example of this, but it doesn't matter if it's a subject that I have no real affinity for myself, could kind of take it or leave it. If someone's sitting across me and they're really passionate about it, I'm all in. I would love to hear, right? If someone wants to tell me the intricacies and why they love curling or something, I'm all there for it, right? Like if it's genuine and I can feel that someone's genuine about it, I love that. So it opens me up to all these realms. And then when they do, right? Like, I was never a big golfer. I like golf. I just don't really have the temperament for it. I'm a little too angry.
I'm not so much too angry, but I'm kind of
Yeah.
I play a game called Whack Fuck occasionally.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I golf. Yeah. But my best friend for the last couple of years, he's a huge golfer. He's an assistant golf pro at the golf course down the street, and he's so into it. And because of that, it's infectious, right? Like, I've started to love golf. I watched the Ryder Cup this year. I really enjoyed it. I'm getting into it, but it's by osmosis of all I need to get me into something. It's just somebody that's passionate about it, right? And I think that's so much. And like, going back to that, I need to care about it, or to realize why it's useful, or to be taught by someone that cares, right? Because that's the genuine passion. And that was the same with school, right? Like, when I go to these classes by these people that didn't really care, they didn't love business because they never did business. They're just doing this for a job, and they're telling me that came through. And it's like, I don't want to listen to it. But when it was someone that really loved business or loved economics or loved accounting and really had passion for it and show it, I was all in. I would lock in with them, and I'd go to those classes, right? Or I shouldn't say that. I'd go to more of those classes.
Like, I would wonder, this is a question for you more than an answer. I would ask if they loved business or loved economics or loved whatever.
Yeah.
Or did they love to teach?
That is very true. And maybe that's what that's what got them into it was,
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, exactly.
right?
My mind's spinning with all
it doesn't
the...
matter. It doesn't matter how much you love a subject if you don't have the desire to pass on that knowledge.
For sure. And that's probably such a big difference between, junior high, like teachers versus professors, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be a teacher, you're going into that to be a teacher. That is the main role. With professors, they're going into a subject and they might have a path that leads them into teaching of that subject, but that's the teaching wasn't what got them in. That's secondary, generally. Yeah. Right. And there's amazing, and I think that's the big difference is the profs that have both those things, the passion for the subject and the passion for passing that subject on. That's what hooks people, right? But again, going back to, if you tried to staff a full faculty with those people, you can't. It's impossible, right? And that this is,
well, and you don't want to, and to some extent, like on a.
Could you expand on that?
For a school the size of U of A.
U of A, yeah.
Right? I don't need 47 teachers that love to teach.
Right.
Because I need somebody to be the boss.
Yeah.
I need somebody to put their foot down. I need somebody to set the guidelines and do the rules and be the guy in the background.
Right.
And on a grand scale, I mean, if you're like a small, tiny little building, you can get away with that.
Like that Evergreen College that Brett and Heather, like a small school where they're trying something different, you can get away with it there. But
you absolutely want that. Then you want that passion, because that's what's going to drive your student population.
Right.
But when you're looking at it's a business.
Yeah.
Education is a business. It is sure a business. Right? U of A is a business.
Comes more so every day.
High school is a business, right? Like, I mean, you start to see, you look at so many high schools now, they have a principal that probably, or administrator, that probably doesn't they don't know their kids because they never get out of the office.
Right.
Because it's all about a numbers game. Right. And it's not.
Yeah. And that's a very interesting way to put it. And I feel like, not just kind of almost to take this right back to the start of how we talked about this, was what I asked you about realty was, what were the things you weren't aware of and things that are important, like you said, that there's a lot of costs and it takes a while to make money, and that that's a very important thing to know going into it. And if you don't, I feel like that we almost stumbled upon another one of those of that is so important for, I feel, if somebody's listening to this and you're about to go to university, to understand that there's going to be professors that are there just as a job and that they don't have, and you need to recognize that and you have to take it with a grain of salt. Don't do what I did of just being so frustrated that these guys don't care. Just go into it. It is what it is. If you find professors that can really try, you're going to have to go through some classes where it's going to be useless to you. Yep. You just have to, get through it to get the credits. Maybe you can find a different prof that teaches it, but to go into that with that understanding, I would have loved if someone would have broke that down to me before university, and I wouldn't have to go learn that all on my own and go through so much frustration with fucking these idiots teaching me. Like, I want to fucking.
Well, they're smart. They're intelligent, or the ones that I can't understand.
Yeah.
And this is like, it's like, take the time to communicate clearly, right?
That is
and
tough.
Whether that's a language, but whether it's a language barrier or even just a knowledge base, you get, like, I had profs that, I think one of the best profs I ever had was actually my calculus 115. So second row calculus. He got off the plane on Friday from Germany.
Wow.
Did not speak a word of English and was in the classroom on Tuesday teaching math. But he was a phenomenal prof.
Yeah. There should.
Because he knew how to, and I mean, he knew maybe basic English, but he knew almost next to no English when he got off that plane on Friday. By the end of the semester, had improved substantially, don't get me wrong. But he was still a good teacher because he knew how to show what was going on.
Yeah.
Whereas I had profs that couldn't communicate. Like, I remember linear algebra. I don't know if you had to take any algebra courses or not.
I can't even remember now.
And it's all about variables and matrices.
Yeah, that's ringing some bells. Ringing some bells.
Looking at a lot of stuff in 3 dimensions, so you go from having X and Y to having X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Every variable was X, Y, Z. So it wasn't X, Y, and Z. Well, you have an XYZ and an XYZ and an XYZ. Like, holy fuck, buddy. How is anybody supposed to learn this shit?
Yeah.
Like, but it was his inability to understand the English language.
Right.
Made it almost impossible to teach mathematical language.
Right.
Right. Like,
right. And they say math is a language, right? And that's probably one of the subjects that you can get away with a little bit more if you do know the subject really well and you find your own ways, you can communicate it, right? Whereas if you're trying to teach, I don't know, like language arts or something, like English or something, it'd be tough,
right?
just if I don't push back on this a little bit, I'll hate myself of just they're intelligent. I agree with that, but also one of the things I really struggled with was sometimes with the own subject matter that they had intelligence within it, but it was so lacking anything to round that out that intelligence actually wasn't intelligence. It was intelligence. Yeah, that's yours. Yeah.
No personality.
No. Yeah. But it's almost like real world to know how to, there's no way how to apply. There's no way they know how to apply the knowledge that they clearly do have because they're missing so many pieces of like how the real world works. So like you might have this amazing social justice, like this is like some of my degree was natural resources, environment, and energy and environment.
Yep.
I thought that would be a lot more natural resources and energy is a lot more environment. So I took tons of environmental classes and it was clearly intelligent people, but they were so missing some core understanding because they clearly went into this, took this in school, went back, have never worked a day in their life. And you could see it's like, yeah, there's intelligence there.
Or never kept up on it.
Or never kept up. Yeah. One of those two things, right? But both of those two things get you to the same point of what's coming through of it's you're picking up on something different where when somebody's disingenuous, you can pick up on it pretty quickly. It's not disingenuous because they are being extremely genuine about what they feel and what they think to be right. Yeah. But it's just not.
They haven't evolved.
They haven't evolved or they don't understand how it works within a bigger system. So they think they're passing on knowledge, but they're passing on ignorance because what they're passing on is their viewpoint from this very, very myopic way that they see it to all these kids that are just coming in. They've never worked a day in their life either, so they don't see it. Like where I'm sitting there fucking fuming, like how can you say that? How do you not see? How do you not? And maybe if I would have been more vocal in that class, they could have showed me that they had these things and I was missing something.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure it was a bit of that too. Like I'll fully admit to that, but you could tell that they were missing, and that was why I was so frustrated. I think we talked about this on the phone the other day. I was struggling in high school with professors that would teach their viewpoint without showing the others that can be there. And how I was picking up on that, and I was getting very frustrated with that as a kid because I could see that these other kids aren't paying. It was kind of a similar thing. It was almost like I feel bad for everyone else in this class. Like I can take what you're saying with a grain of salt of all this other stuff I know, and try and extract the good from the bad. But there's a lot of bad in it. There's a lot of wheat, but there's a fuckload of chaff coming along with it, right? And I can do that. I can separate those things. But I look around the class and everyone's just sitting there pie-eyed at these people like they're speaking gospel. And it's like, oh man, if you take all this, you're in for a rude awakening when you graduate and you go out into the real world and you try and apply this as if this is all gospel. And you didn't realize that, 20% of that was good stuff, but there's also 80% of bullshit that was tied into that.
I think the other side you got to look at on this, and I'm agreeing with you on, but is so many people, their knowledge is not current.
Right. For sure.
Like business is like the technology and it is technology. Technology has changed everything, right? Yeah. I mean, there's probably still some of the resource stuff that's based in old school, whatever, but having the technology that we have now, it's not the same as the technology that we had 20,
for sure. 5 years ago,
10 years ago, right? Like, and I see that in so many industries.
The medical industry, huge.
Education is a huge part. And I always go back to this because it gets me in less trouble because it's farther. I always equate it to what I call super waitress. Mm. So when I was like a teenager or early in my, hospitality career, I was a bartender and waiter and whatever. And I always had we had a manager who would come in when the bar is packed. Mm-hmm. And go, why isn't this person served? Why isn't this done? And it's like, there's like 3 people here. She says, when I used to work here, I could serve this whole bar on my own by myself with one. And you're like, okay, super waitress.
Get in there.
Get her done. Right? And it's just the unrealistic expectations of how it used to be.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like looking back, it's not the same as looking forward.
For sure.
And so many of these, and so many people as they get up and higher and higher and higher in the management world, forget to look back at and realistically look back
for sure
at where they were at. Like,
for sure.
You get along with your staff so much better when you got that teenage boy that's running your C-store.
Yeah.
If you can relate to that.
Yeah.
And you actually have to think back to when I was 16. Mm-hmm. You can't go, well, it's wrong.
Yeah.
You have to, okay. We need to work with it.
Yeah. What was I doing when I was in that role? I was sneaking off into the Bobcat on the weekend because we worked the 6 a.m. shift. Yeah. And one guy would have a walkie-talkie as we're in the store. One guy would have a walkie-talkie sleeping in the Bobcat. And if, the boss came in, they'd walk out, okay, get it, start the Bobcat, get him, pretend you're doing shit, right? And that's a much different mindset. And I think that's very important. And I think also it works in reverse of there's also like, I completely agree
Well,
with
there
that.
has to be a time when you say enough's enough.
Exactly.
But at the same time, right? Like,
And I think what that situation you just described of those people not being able to look back on the place that they were and the super waitress like that, you see that I used to see that all the time with work and what we were doing. But I would also almost see the same situation in reverse, where these people have never yet experienced the upper levels and they don't understand how the entire business works. So for their one, like say they're a salesperson, right? And they know sales and they know the sales world, right? And they don't understand how the sales world, you want to give away everything for the price. You want to get as many customers, but there's certain realities that need to go with that for it to make sense. It's got to make money. And to see it's the same thing. They can't look forward to, I'm sure they'll get there if they keep going up through the business and they keep seeing, they'll see more sides of it and they'll see how it all interacts, but they're just not there yet. But they just say, well, why can't we just do this? It's like,
I'm not quite in the same place that you're at, but I do agree with what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing that made me equate those two, they're a bit more different. It's not the same thing in reverse, but what made me equate was, well, then you go do it then, right? And it's the same feeling of, well, why can't we just give away this price? All right, well, you start a business and you give away those prices, and then you see what happens. And right, it's the same feeling, but two maybe more different situations than that. But definitely what you described, I would see that on a weekly basis of exactly that. Of I can do that, right? Like,
Get at her, Bob.
You have a dispatch, a truck. Well, I can't do that run in 14 hours. Well, I drove truck. I used to get, it's like you see all the time, all the time. That's so common. Yeah. I've never, I don't think I realized how much of a colloquialism or commonism that was until you laid it out like that. But now you say, oh yeah, we used to say that all the fucking time.
Well, and I mean, sometimes there's some truth to it. Don't get me wrong. Like you have to know where that is. But it's like you see it a lot in education too. Yeah. It's like, well, why can't we do this? It's like education and probably your industry too. Yeah, it's changed so much.
Yeah,
right. Like, how much do you ship now by pipeline instead of by truck or
train?
By train, right? Like that's changed a lot in the last 20, 30, 40 years.
For
right?
sure.
Like,
for sure.
It's no different than like when you're in a classroom, like I'm teaching with technology or not with technology. Like fuck, when my dad was teaching high school, I'm pretty sure
didn't have a smart board.
Abacus is involved. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe not quite, but you know what I mean?
Like, I know what you're saying.
Like, I mean, I never learned how to use a graphing calculator till I started teaching high school math.
Right. So that's such a huge piece of it too, right?
Like absolutely, right? So your technology has changed. And if you're the person that got out at the right time, you don't understand how that's changed your classroom and how that's changed your dynamics, right? And it probably occurs at the university level as well, right?
For sure.
I know you were talking the other day, you were talking about study groups. It's like talking to all these people and about all the Google Sheets they do, or Google Form, whatever it is.
Oh, we use
and you share them, and everybody sits down and
that's how you do every group project,
and you get your notes and whatever. It's like none of that existed when I was in school.
And like my first year, it was kind of like that I got to see that with group projects. My first year, my fourth year, it was in your first year, like some people would use the Google Sheet, some people didn't. It was kind of,
but you were kind of the beginning of when that was actually coming into our system.
Exactly.
Too,
so
right?
by fourth year, there was no group project that the first thing anybody said, okay, I'll start a Google's Doc and we'll start, everybody put it in, we'll split it up and you can see everyone's writings in different colors. And it's an amazing tool for collaborative work, right? Like it's amazing, but you see it almost, there was no, I can't imagine a group project in probably the last 3 years. Like I think probably the first year was probably the only time I ever did a group project without that. And maybe it was only half of them, but after that, no, it was everyone, right? And that was a quick change that happened within my degree, right? Like that's quick.
And really Google does. Cause like, I mean, I remember being probably
Wolfram Alpha.
Pardon me?
Wolfram Alpha. Do you ever come across that? Do you know what that is?
I recognize it, but
he's this Stephen Wolfram. He's an amazing. I don't know. He's a mathematician. Maybe he's an engineer. He built this amazing AI system that can type in, like you could put a word problem in, a logic problem, and it'll return answers. Math problems, it returns. It's just this amazing database, and we used it in university so much to cheat. Like you just type, it will blow your mind. Like go home tonight and just fuck around with it. Just ask stupid questions. Like what is the average temperatures in California from 1962 to 69 or whatever it is. It will give you a ridiculous. It's just this wealth of information, right? But now these professionals have to keep up with that because how much are they aware that the students have this at their disposal, right? Like.
Well, that's like, and that also depends on what you're doing, right? Yeah. Like I said, there's so many tools available to teachers that they're unaware of too. Right?
For sure, there is.
I mean, I still do a little bit of marking for an online math school, and they don't get marks if they don't show work. Yeah, because everything is Google. You can Google anything now, right? It's like it's great that you got the answer, but And when they do their exams and stuff, everything is supervised.
And that was one of the things I really, specifically with math, that I really hated, was always the show your work thing. And it makes us a lot of sense, and it's becoming more and more. And I think that's almost sad to me, because what I loved about it was that Excel class. That's what it was. When I did that Excel class, the way they worded it out, they would give you this lesson on how whatever subject they're trying to teach you or whatever, and then you have an assignment on how you do it. But all that was mattered was there was a couple cells within that sheet that they gave you. Like, they give you a sheet that you're working within. The answer that ends up in that cell, however you got to that answer, it didn't matter. I don't think I did any of the assignments how we were supposed to. It was just, I would bang my head against the wall, or it wouldn't be me. It was a whole group, because it was a really hard class. It would always be groups of us studying. And then every once in a while, I would just say, I'm going to go off and work away from you guys. And I'm just going to try something weird. And I would find my weird back end, which is amazing. That's what Excel is. And I'd find, because like, I'm very good with logic, but it's a weird logic. It's a Nick flavored logic, right? Like, it is logic, but it's kind of weird, right? Yeah. And I figured out, and then I'd try and explain it to them, but that was so rewarding of having that taken away, of the show your work part of it. Really, it fired me up, and it made me excited to do it, because it didn't matter how I got there, as long as I got the right answer. Yeah. I got the right answer.
Well, yeah, but I don't care how you get there either, but I want to know that you didn't type it into your...
Exactly. Yeah, right? and that's the balance of how do you find that? Yeah, you didn't type it into your T98 or whatever they're called.
Well, no, I don't care. Like, if you're doing it on the calculator, that's
right? Sorry, that's a bad example. Yeah. You didn't type it into Wolfram.
But you're typing, yeah, exactly, right? Like I said, or I want to know that you at least understand the concepts. Yeah, and I know there's still a lot of math teachers that don't think that way, and they want to see step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. But I mean, for myself, I just want to see that you did it.
Show the cognition.
So if that means that you show me that you guessed and checked it,
yeah,
I'll give you the mark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but I want to see your thought process.
I think I did that a lot in your class, actually, because I think you let it get away with it.
Well, but like I said, you started A and you ended B.
Yeah,
there's a process in the middle, and I want to see that you didn't just get lucky.
Exactly.
I want to know that you actually understood what you were doing. Right.
I'm curious for you, because you said you didn't really have graphing calculators until you started teaching with them, and what I didn't realize, I think even in high school, we did some crazy shit, but like now looking on YouTube and stuff, like the things you can do with those calculators, like play games. What's the craziest shit did you see anybody do some crazy shit with calculators back in your day?
Oh, back in my day?
Well, I mean, just like, I'm sure there's so many kids coming through. Like, did you ever see someone?
Back in my day, it was turn it over and make it spell boob.
Okay, sorry. Poor word choice. Did you see anything crazy in your teaching days from the students that are doing stuff?
And this is a story that I got from another teacher.
Okay.
Was actually with the brand new TI.
Yeah.
I don't know I think it was the Inspire.
Yeah.
Which effectively would be, similar to computing power of your phone.
Yeah.
But they jailbroke it and put Nintendo DS games on it.
Yeah. I've seen that too. I've seen people playing old Pokemon, like old Pokemon games. Yeah.
I'm like, seriously, you just took a $200 calculator, and effectively, if you have a teacher that knows anything, you will not be able to use this on your exams.
Well, they used to make us, because of that, in university, when we were doing classes, a lot of classes wouldn't allow you to have graphing calculators, but if they did, they would force you. They'd have what are the people that help with testing? Proctors. They had proctors come by and make you do the factory reset or whatever on your. If you wanted to use it, you had to do a reset for them to show that, right? Like,
you do that for your diplomas too.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, maybe.
No. You don't do it. The teacher will do it for you generally.
Right. But that makes sense. That makes sense. Looking back that far,
but like you said, but if you know what you're doing, you could definitely, like I said, you could
say formulas in there.
There used to be a program, and I don't know if it still exists. There's a guy that got caught, a couple of kids that got caught in Red Deer. And you can put programs on your computers, right? On your calculators. So this was actually, there was a program, somebody had developed an app or a program that would hide other programs.
So convenient.
It would stay there, but you had to know how to, it was a weird way to get in to access it. Yeah. And it was like, so you could put all kinds of programs and data and information on your computer, on your calculator.
Yeah.
And then you ran this program and it hit it somewhere. Yeah. And so you reset the calculator at the beginning and it says all RAM reset and whatever, but it didn't, it skips this little chunk.
Yeah.
And then you can pull them back into the test, you open it up and whatever. But some kid actually got caught because technically you're supposed to check the calculator on the way in.
And the way out.
And probably one of the few, like honestly, probably one of the few schools that probably checked it on the way out. And somebody checked it on the way out and saw this program and all of these programs are on this calculator. What the hell?
Yeah.
And they,
So
got a 0 on his diploma that year.
Oof. That would be tough. Yeah. Well, I've kept you here for a long time. Maybe I'll just hit you with one more question and I'll get you out of here. Thank you. Just thank you again for all you did coming in and all the stories. It's been an awesome time. But I'm curious, for all those things that we kind of talked about today, running, liquor stores, hotels, teaching, all that stuff. Going into this latest venture of realty, what kind of skills do you think were the most applicable of like the things that you picked up through all those different ventures, right? Like the things what do you think are the most important ones that are still helping you today that maybe you picked up along the way, or there's a specific point you picked them up?
I mean, I'm still, for me, the two things that are, and it doesn't matter what industry is, I look at it is, people.
Yeah,
I love,
for sure.
I like working with people, and the ability to ask questions, even if it makes me sound like an idiot.
Yeah, that's huge.
Right? I don't care. Like, I'm going to ask this question because I'm going to figure it out. And especially like for me, it's really important. I'm sure my broker hates me some days, right?
Yeah.
Like that's my boss, basically my boss, right? And but I'll not know how to fill out a contract because some kind of weird things happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to phone and ask him.
Yeah.
And it might be a stupid thing. And it's like, I might know the answer to this, but before I do it and I look dumb in front of my client, I'm going to ask you and look
I'd
dumb.
rather look dumb in front of you than in front of the client. Exactly. That is so important. And that is something that I recognize as a huge tool. I've always done that. Has always been pretty innate to me. I've always kind of done that. I've always, asked why. And I don't care if I am an idiot. I don't care if people think I know I'm an idiot, right? I'm also very intelligent too, but it's couched between a lot of idiocy for sure. And I know that. But going into work, what I recognize is almost what's most as important as that is to recognize in others when they're doing the opposite, where they're nodding their head yes, but you can see in their eyes that they don't understand it. That for business was one of the biggest tools I found. And
when you're in charge, absolutely.
And not even that, but what I found
responsible for me and my
exactly.
My job, right?
And what I found was almost a scarier thing to do was to start recognizing in other people when they're doing that, and to start just, okay, no, can we respond, or to put it on yourself, just, hey, I don't get it, to just ask for other people. And one of the biggest things I noticed was when COVID came around, things started to go to Zoom and we stopped doing our meetings in person with people of like I'm speaking more to our high level meetings, and maybe I'll pick on Ingo because, I can, and I know I won't get shit, but this is applicable to everyone in our kind of our top upper echelon of the circle, was when we'd have those meetings and we'd all be in a room together, I would see that Ingo would not, he is famous for this. He's probably one of the most famous, right? But I think a lot of people in our upper, for a long time, that was one of the biggest changes we had to make was we're not doing that anymore. If we don't understand it, we're going to stop. Even if it takes, if we're going to have to add 20 minutes on every meeting, we're going to get through this, but you start to recognize it, right? So I would do that. When I recognize Ingo didn't get something, no, it doesn't. This is important. You run this company. You need to understand this is very important we're going to stop. And it made immediate effects, right? And we started getting way further with our meetings because we wouldn't just, and I'd get so frustrated because it was like, we'd have meetings, everyone would nod their head yes, we come back to it a week later, everyone, I didn't get it. I was like, I knew you guys didn't get, you fuckers, but why didn't you say something, right? And then, and we started seeing.
And now that we're ready to move forward, we're fucked because nobody knows what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was very frustrating, but then we started getting better at, and once we started doing that, of just making that very clear that we're not doing that. We're all going to understand it, and there's no qualms about it, right? We're all going to be that person at one point that doesn't get it. Just say it. And everyone got really good at it, right? Of just saying what it was, because they knew if they were kind of bullshitting about it, it'd get called out and we'd go over it again. So it got rid of that happening. But then everything went to Zoom. And what I found was it's so much harder to read those body cues of when someone doesn't understand something over Zoom. And the same thing started happening again.
And maybe that's one of the reasons that you have made yourself and done very well, right? Is you get a lot of people that are on the top that they don't look for the body language. They'll listen to the tone of voice.
That's right? Everything.
And
it's everything in business.
It is, right? Yeah. Like I said, I know for me, that's always been a part of who I am.
For sure.
I'm maybe sometimes better at it than others.
Well, I think that's probably the skill of a lot of good teachers is you get the fact of you have 30, well, hopefully less than 30, but probably 30 kids in front of you where you're reading 30 people a day. It's probably like a comedian or like someone that's on stage. It's a superpower that you develop over time because you have a ton of use cases to test it against, right? Of when you're right or when you're wrong. Like I'm sure you can read someone a lot better than the average cat, right?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. Well, and for me, it's not necessarily like that type of stuff, but like not always school related. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But it's like it's always amazed me.
Yeah.
To try to. One of the things that random little things, and I'm sure you've probably done before, is I like to try to figure out what somebody's thinking.
Yeah. I do. That's all I'm doing all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, but based on their mannerisms, their body language, their whatever they wrote in a letter or whatever, which is probably one of the reasons I absolutely hate important conversations on email or text, right?
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And that's why I will be the guy that will say, phone me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Well, when I texted you, see if you want to do it, yeah, call me tomorrow. Right.
Yep.
And then I forgot, like I always do. I called you a couple days later. Typical Nick.
But it's like, because there's going to be no confusion
100%.
and I can hear what you mean.
Yeah.
Without listening to your words, if that makes sense, right? Like
100% it does.
And that's really important to me.
Yeah.
Is to be able to listen to people and understand that even though what they're saying this, but what do they mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know,
That's awesome. That's a good way to sum up exactly what I was kind of getting at with the importance of it. And I think that just highlights, Zoom is great and it does a lot of things, but there's definitely its limitations. You need to learn those limitations to know when to use Zoom. When does it have to be in person? When does it need to be a phone call, right? Like, and you'd think that Zoom would be the best equivalent to pick up on some of that stuff, but for whatever reason it is, you get a lot of cues through Zoom, but there's something missing because I found that it was a huge struggle of,
so how big's your photo? How big a picture are you looking at?
Yeah.
You're seeing this.
Yeah.
A lot of your body language is in your arms and your legs and your
right.
Your
for sure.
postures,
And it sounds kind of hippie.
And some people will really pick up on it though.
Yeah.
You're cued to it, right? Like you said. And I know that I sometimes will pick up on stuff that other people don't.
Yeah, I found that my whole life. Even when I was a kid, I was always like, I think that's just something you're born with, dude. You know, like people call it I'm an empath or I'm this. I think it's just everything's on a spectrum for every trait ever, and some people are more or less. And
I learned more by trying to figure out what you're thinking, right? And
Me too.
And I think as a kid, I probably really used it for evil.
Same here.
Right? No, you know what I mean?
No, I'm laughing because I'm just thinking back on it. I've actually talked about that on the.
You learn what you can get away with and who you could push.
Oh man, and you learn that that's a skill that with a that cliche, with great power becomes great responsibility. Of looking back, when I look back on it, of what that was, is you're always doing that thing of trying to figure out what people are thinking and what buttons to push. Like
how far can I push this guy before he loses his mind? And do I want him to lose his mind?
But
sometimes you did.
And that was like thinking back of using it for evil, right? Like when I look back, I was a pretty good kid. I was but there'd be times where, and apologies because people probably heard this a million times on the podcast, but I'd be with friends and we'd be joking around and I liked it, I had to give it, but then every once in a while they would cross some invisible line within me where they talk about something like my weight or something. And because I had all that, I had all that ammo within because I knew what made it tick. I would just go right for the jugular and just say the wildest shit. And looking back on it, I feel so guilty about that. And it didn't happen all the time. It was very rare and it was always in defense. Right. But like looking back on that, like I just, now I hold that, I have so much more reverence for what that is to have that and to use it only appropriately and like only go to that, only hit that, put that atomic key in when it's really necessary in defense of somebody else, right? Or if someone really needs to learn a lesson, but I can't even remember the time I've done that in recent memory because of how much guilt I have looking back. But that's only been the last couple of years that I ever even looked back on that. I always thought like, oh, you fuck with me if I fuck with you, right? Like don't test me or whatever. But looking back on it with a little bit more, I don't know, whatever it is, whatever I've gained since then that made me look back and look, I was like, ooh, man.
We all put our foot in our mouth once in a while.
For sure. Yeah, some more than others.
It is what it is, but I can't say I've never done it, and I probably did it today.
Yeah,
somebody probably will call let you know when they did it. But like you said, it's one of those things, and you kind of learn. But I'm the same way. Like I said, I can push buttons. I have learned myself that when I get really sleep deprived, I need to not have conversations with people.
Yeah.
Because I go from being kind of somewhat sarcastic and I think I'm funny, to holy fuck, what did you say?
Yeah.
And you look back on it and go, wow, I'm an ass.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But for me, I hit that level of grumpy and I can go, okay, no, I need to go have a nap.
Yeah. But that's the wisdom that comes with age of recognizing that in yourself of when and why these things happen. And then you can at least,
the why.
It doesn't mean you're not going to fall into that pitfall, even though you know what's in front of you. You're still going to fall into it, but it's going to be less. Or you might be able to apologize. It's a little bit sooner. So, before, maybe it's not a couple days later, it's going, oh, that's kind of an ass. Maybe it's 20 minutes later, you call them back. Sorry, fuck. I didn't sleep last night.
Or sometimes it's immediate, right?
Yeah.
Like you say something.
You catch yourself in the moment.
Jesus, I'm really kind of tired and I probably shouldn't have said that the way I said it.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
you said. But yeah, like I said, it's.
And I think that's the biggest lesson of it's the big lesson that runs on all this stuff is just not beating yourself up. This all comes with time. Everyone figures this out at a different pace and it's all your little things that you're figuring out on your own.
Just because you and I think the same way in that, in some of this stuff, like I said, doesn't mean that you have to.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Everybody lives their own life. And I think that's a big thing for me. As it's taken me a long time to realize that I have a handful of people in my life that are like really important to me.
Yeah.
The rest of the people, you know what? If we can be friends, that's great.
Yeah.
If we can't be, well, sucks to be you.
Sucks to be you.
Later.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
It is what it is, right? Like it's just, if you're not worth my time, you're not worth my time.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds a little harsh sometimes.
But when you,
it's not really meant that way.
Yeah.
But
I know exactly what you mean. And that's very similar to how I operate too. And I will give everyone every chance to be that. And I'll be friendly so that I can open the door and make sure that that's opportunity is open to everybody that wants it. Yeah. But if I do that and it's not right, like, and I think that's why I get so mad sometimes, because I'm so overly polite and so nice that when you throw it back, that's where I go. I just gave you everything. And you know what? Like, don't mistake, my favorite saying, you know, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Don't mistake my kindness for weakness. That's kind of my big thing. Of like, I will be kind to everybody, in love with everybody, but you take advantage of that and you'll realize quick that it's, you know, that's when it goes south. But that's
way too long, man.
That's almost 3 hours I've kept you here, and that was fun every second of it, but I better get you back on the road before it starts snowing again and you get locked in here. Yeah. Then we have to spend the whole night drinking beer in the hot tub. That would be just a shame. Can't have that happening. That'll be
that would be a good picture, probably.
Oh boy. Yeah, no. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. That was so much fun to catch up. That was an awesome conversation. I knew it would be. I was
well, you haven't listened to it yet. Maybe it wasn't as good as you thought it was.
No, I don't ever listen to it. I just know how they make me feel. Oh. Yeah, I just that's what I tell everybody. I said about 5 minutes after I walk out of the podcast, I forget everything we said, but I just remember how it made me feel. Right?
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. I only re-listen to him if the guest is coming on again. Oh. So I'm sure I will re-listen to this at some point, because I'm sure we're gonna have to do this again, because I only got to about half the shit I wanted to talk to you about.
Can I see the questions?
Yeah, if you want to, for sure you can. I'll have to explain them because they're in my shorthand. You probably won't even get them, but yeah, I'll show them after. All right, thanks again, my friend.
All right, thanks, Nick.
All right, do it soon.
All right, that's episode 111 in the books. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do all those things I mentioned in every intro and outro. You know, following the podcast on social medias, Instagram, Twitter, it really helps. LinkedIn, Facebook, all those kind of things that are all around. Subscribing to the YouTube channel, leaving a like there, subscribing on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to this, that really helps. I try and release the episodes early in the morning when you're hooked up to Wi-Fi. So if you have it set to download automatically, it'll do it while you're on Wi-Fi, and helps me out. If you hear an episode that you know someone will like, maybe it's a guest that's a comedian, you know someone that loves comedy, or if it's an author and you know someone that loves fiction, pass it on to them. Word of mouth is the biggest thing that podcasts have to work for them, and need to utilize that as much as I can. And that's why I got you beautiful people that listen to this show that can help me out in doing that. So thank you guys so much. If you are doing that, no worries if you don't. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Hope you really kick some ass and, take care of yourself. I know the holidays are coming up and there's a little bit of stress that can come along with that, some family stuff and all that. And I hope that that'll go smooth. And if not, just hope you can keep a sense of grace through it and not do anything too drastic, and just find some enjoyment out of it. However you have to do, whatever kind of strings you got to pull, things you got to do for yourself, do it. You know what? People won't remember all the other stuff, and you putting yourself in a hole to try and make everyone else around you happy is not a good solution either. So I know you don't need my permission, but if you feel you do, you got it, baby. I'm here to tell you, mental health is number one. Make sure you do whatever you need to do. And other than that, I will see you guys on the next episode. And stay frosty, baby.